Chapter 391. In the blink of an eye, Sumo arrived at the entrance of the small town. The small town wasn't big, but it was very lively and bustling. There was no sunlight here, but it was slightly bright. There seemed to be a lot of indescribable shiny substances in the air. Actually, after passing through the gate of the Netherworld city, Sumo discovered that the color of the sky here was different from the outside world. This place wasn't dark at all. High up in the sky, there seemed to be moving clouds, but they were silvery white. Sumo thought to himself, is it possible that this place is the clearest part of the Sea of Bitterness? But shouldn't the bottom of the sea be dark? In short, the Netherworld realm was very mysterious, and couldn't be judged with common sense. At the entrance of the small town, there was a decorated archway with 3 big ancient characters written on it. Netherworld Town. Netherworld Town? Sumo smiled inwardly. This is the first town in the Netherworld city. The name Netherworld Town is quite appropriate. On a long street in the Netherworld Town, there were many shops and stalls on both sides of the street. There were also a lot of cultivators coming and going. Except for children, there didn't seem to be any mortals in this town. The most common ones were cultivators of the Foundation establishment realm. It should be said that this was a celestial town. Sumo observed carefully and discovered that the clothes of the cultivators here were quite simple and unadorned, unlike other places in the Pure Land. Sumo secretly used a technique and quietly changed his green robe into the style of the cultivators in the town. At the same time, Sumo also noticed that the style of the buildings in this town was also quite different from other places in the Pure Land. Simple and unadorned. Sumo's impression of the buildings in the Netherworld realm was still the same. In short, Sumo had a feeling that he had returned to a rather ancient time in the Pure Land. He only knew and understood a lot of things about this town from ancient books or the inheritance of the Windwheel faction. Ancient and mysterious. Sumo stepped into the Netherworld town. There were many stalls on both sides of the street with medicinal pills, talismans, magical treasures, and so on. Sumo walked slowly and carefully looked at the things on both sides. There was a dazzling lineup of all kinds of things. Then, he stopped in front of a stall that sold pills. Soul-preserving pill, 60 supreme-grade spiritual stones. Dust-parting pill, 80 top-grade spirit stones. God-destroying pill, 80 top-grade spirit stones. Purple soul pill, 100 top-grade spirit stones. Immortal burial god powder, 150 supreme-grade spirit stones. When he first glanced at the prices, Sumo thought he was seeing things. Sumo had just concocted a few of these 2 kinds of elixirs not too long ago. That was a top undead realm medicinal pill, which was quite precious to Sumo. But here, it was only 80 top-grade spirit stones? This was absolutely the price of cabbages. Forget about undying grade medicinal pills. Even deity tribulation grade medicinal pills on the chaotic gods continent were worth more than this. And on the bone continent, soul transformation grade medicinal pills were priceless, let alone undying grade medicinal pills. Sumo secretly sucked in a breath of cold air. It seemed that she had not traveled enough, and her horizons were not broad enough. In terms of the price of medicinal pills, the Netherworld realm was simply a paradise for cultivators. For Sumo, 100 supreme-grade spirit stones was like a drop in the ocean. Thereupon, Sumo's heart slightly moved. The person selling the medicinal pills was a young nascent soul cultivator. When he saw Sumo standing in front of his stall, he knew that a buyer had arrived. Smiling, he said, "Senior, may I know what kind of medicinal pills you are looking for?" The medicinal pills of our Purple Jade Pavilion are absolutely cheap and of high quality. However, we only accept supreme-grade spirit stones. You can't exchange for anything else. The nascent soul cultivator added. Sumo faintly smiled. The last thing he lacked were supreme-grade spirit stones. In the southern territory of the chaotic gods continent, Sumo had a mine. However, he didn't say what kind of medicinal pills he wanted to buy. Instead, he glanced at the medicinal pills on the stall. There were no less than 10 kinds of medicinal pills on the stall. Among them, there were more than 10 at the undead realm and above. Sumo thought to himself, could it be that the Purple Jade Pavilion is a sect that specializes in refining medicinal pills? Otherwise, how could a small stall like this be so big? Of course, it was impossible for Sumo to buy all of these medicinal pills. Even if he had the financial resources to do so, Sumo still understood the principle of not showing off one's wealth. Moreover, he had just entered the Netherworld realm and didn't know much about it. Therefore, he wouldn't rashly purchase a large number of medicinal pills. The Violet Soul Pill and the Eternal God Burying Powder were both deity burying pills. Of course, Sumo didn't have any medicinal pills of this level on him. These 2 kinds of medicinal pills could help a cultivator that had just advanced to the deity burying realm quickly stabilize their realm and build an eternal immortal foundation. Although they were both low-level deity burying realm medicinal pills, they were still out of reach for the current Sumo. Without the pill recipes, Sumo only had the soul-storing cauldron and the immortal cave, the Flower Valley. Therefore, Sumo's gaze paused on the 2 medicinal pills for a moment. That nascent soul cultivator's ability to read people's expressions wasn't ordinary. He immediately smiled and said, "The Violet Soul Pill and the Eternal God Burying Powder are both specially made by our Purple Jade Pavilion. Even if you don't need them, you can give them to a powerful elder in your sect or clan to show your filial piety." Sumo was only a soul transformation realm cultivator at this time. Therefore, she didn't need those medicinal pills. Therefore, that nascent soul cultivator thought that Sumo wanted to give them to a cultivator of a higher realm. Gifting medicinal pills was very popular in the Netherworld realm. Hee. Sumo nodded and smiled. There are indeed some elders in my clan who might need them. However, can you guarantee the quality of these medicinal pills? Senior, don't worry. The nascent soul cultivator patted his chest and said, "The medicinal pills produced by the Purple Jade Pavilion are definitely good. The ingredients for our medicinal pills come from the northern underworld realm. That place is the #1 deep-sea hunting ground of the Netherworld realm, and our Purple Jade Pavilion has its own area. We can hunt and kill many strange beasts of the deep sea. Therefore, Purple Jade Pavilion's medicinal pills are well known in the Netherworld realm, and they are protected by the whole world. If something happens in the future, you can apply for compensation from any branch of the Purple Jade Pavilion in the Netherworld realm." The nascent soul cultivator was very eloquent. Purple Jade Pavilion's medicinal pills were well known in the Netherworld. Unfortunately, Sumo had just arrived here and hadn't heard of them. Moreover, the northern underworld realm sounded like a very famous place in the Netherworld realm. Apply for compensation from the whole world. Sumo didn't remember when or where she had heard these words before. However, he didn't ask too much. In any case, several hundred top-grade spirit stones didn't matter to Sumo. Thereupon, Sumo didn't say anything else and directly said, "1 purple soul pill and 1 packet of undying spirit burying powder." "Alright." After hearing this, the nascent soul cultivator quickly took out an ordinary pill storage box and put the medicinal pills inside. Sumo flipped her hand and took out a storage bag. There were exactly 250 top-grade spirit stones inside. She handed over the money in one hand and the goods in the other. Sumo took the medicinal pill and scanned it with her divine sense. There was no problem. The nascent soul cultivator took the storage bag and scanned it with his divine sense. There was no problem either. However, a hint of surprise flashed through his eyes. Because the top-grade spirit stones in the storage bag were definitely not from the Netherworld realm. The Netherworld realm didn't produce this kind of spirit stones. Someone from outside the Netherworld realm? What was the origin of this green-robed soul transformation realm cultivator? The nascent soul cultivator of the Purple Jade Pavilion had many questions in his mind. The white-robed youngster in the restaurant not far away was watching everything with a smile. Chapter 392. The center of the Pure Land world was the bitter Samsara Sea. Outside the bitter Wheel Sea were the White Bone Continent, the Chaotic God Continent, and the Ancient Shu Continent. The three of them formed a circle to protect him. In terms of land area, the bitter Wheel Sea was equivalent to the sum of 3 continents. If one were to look at the Pure Land from the outside, the first thing that would enter one's eyes would be the vast ocean. The Netherworld realm was 108,000 meters below the Bitter Wheel Ocean. What Sumo saw was just a corner of the 9 Nether. The Netherworld City was the center of the Netherworld realm, but it wasn't the whole place. The 9 Underworlds was rather special. It was very different from the other continents of the Pure Land. This was something Sumo did not understand. Therefore, he took out a top-quality spirit stone that didn't belong to the Netherworld realm. The top-grade spirit stones of the Pure Land continent were pure white, while the spirit stones of the Netherworld realm were black. This green-robed cultivator was someone from outside the 9 Underworld. The nascent soul cultivator of the Purple Jade Pavilion instantly came to a conclusion. However, he remained calm and collected the spirit stones. Senior, the spirit stones are correct. Is there anything else you need? The nascent soul cultivator asked with a smile. I don't need it for the time being. Sumo also put away the pills and continued to walk forward. The nascent soul cultivator looked at Sumo's back and frowned slightly. Sumo's mind was on other things in town. He didn't pay attention to the nascent soul cultivator at all. However, the white-clothed youth in the restaurant saw that the nascent soul cultivator packed up his stall after a while and hurriedly left. You think you've found a fat sheep? The white-robed youth looked at the back of the nascent soul cultivator and drank the wine in his cup. At this time, Sumo had entered a grocery store. There were quite a lot of items in this grocery store. However, there were many things that Sumo didn't really recognize. Sir, what would you like to order? The shop assistant was only a young man in the early stage of core formation. With this level of cultivation, he could basically be considered a commoner in this small town. As for Sumo's realm, he couldn't see it at all. However, this shop assistant only cares about selling goods. Even if an immortal comes, I will still treat him the same way. Therefore, he didn't address him as senior. It was easier to just call him guest. I want a map, Sumo said. What kind of map do you want? The Netherworld realm was divided into 9 parts. Outside the 9 parts was the boundless earthly sea of suffering. This shop belongs to the Qian Palace Department, and the largest and most detailed map in the shop is the Qian Palace map. It's more than enough for you to travel around the Qian Palace, the waiter explained. Alright, then we'll need a map of the Qian Palace. Sumo silently noted down the waiter's words. He had heard about the 9 nether tribes from Linghu, He-Huan, and Guan-Xiong. However, he wasn't sure what it referred to. From the looks of it, the Netherworld realm was divided into 9 parts. Outside the 9 parts was the sea. However, it was called the Earth Sea. He was in the Qian Palace division. Based on their names, the 9 divisions of the 9 Nether seemed to be divided by the 9 palaces. As Sumo pondered, the shop assistant handed her a map. Originally, Sumo was going to duplicate it with a jade slip. However, he didn't expect the shop assistant to hand over a map made of animal skin. This surprised Sumo a lot. In Sumo's mind, animal skin maps should have long since been replaced by the divine sense maps in jade slip. The Netherworld realm gave Sumo a primitive feeling in many aspects. Customer, this map costs 300 middle-grade spirit stones, the waiter said. Fine. Sumo was a bit surprised. A map cost 700 middle-grade spirit stones? It was a bit expensive. However, the prices of goods in the Netherworld realm were different. Sumo didn't lack money. Therefore, he didn't waste any time and took out 700 middle-grade spirit stones to pay the bill. The middle-grade spirit stones in the Pure Land and the Netherworld realm were the same. These spirit stones didn't arouse the waiter's suspicion. Then, Sumo unfolded the map. The animal skin wasn't big. It was only a square foot. Sumo didn't know what kind of animal skin it was, but what surprised Sumo was that the map was dynamic. East, west, north, and south were clearly marked. Sumo's current position was at the center of the map. Along with the changes in Sumo's gaze and divine sense, the area displayed on the map would also change. She could see a whole area within a square inch. This animal skin map was very mysterious. No wonder it was so expensive. Unfortunately, Sumo couldn't find the Netherworld city on the map. Thereupon, Sumo furrowed her brows and asked, "Little brother, how far is the Netherworld city from here?" "The Netherworld city?" The waiter was a bit surprised. When the people of the Netherworld talked about the Netherworld city, they didn't use the word Netherworld. They called it Nether City or Holy City. However, the waiter didn't think too much about it. After all, everyone had different ways of speaking. Soon after, he said with a smile, "Nether City? That's the Central Palace Department. The distance from here to the Central Palace Department is several million kilometers." I won't hide it from you. I've never left the Central Palace Department in my life." Sumo laughed. She felt that this young man was very honest. "However, I have a map of the Central Palace Department here. But it's an old item. It was mortgaged by a guest many years ago. If you need it, I can pay it to you. If you need it, I can sell it to you for only 300 mid-grade spirit stones." The waiter seized any opportunity to peddle. "All right. I'm preparing to travel to the Central Palace Department." Sumo agreed readily. "Pay the spirit stones, get the map." The map was a piece of animal skin, and it was indeed very old. However, when Sumo unfolded the animal skin map, the markings on it were still clear. However, Sumo's location was not shown. Sumo noticed that there was a black circular mark at the center of the Central Palace Department map. Beside it were 4 big words: Netherworld City. Central Palace Department, Netherworld City. It was a great gain for Sumo to figure out the geographical location. "Thank you, little brother." Sumo put away the 2 map. She didn't need anything else and directly left the shop. At this moment, Sumo felt a little relieved. With the map in his hand, he could at least determine the direction of his next move. The small town was always lively. Bursts of wine fragrance wafted in the air. Sumo couldn't help but look sideways. There was a restaurant next to it. Since he was in the Netherworld, he should taste the delicacies of the Netherworld. Moreover, Sumo didn't know how long it had been since he had a formal meal. The last time he went to a restaurant was when he and Yi Wuhui went to the Nanhua prefecture of the Undead Nation to eat and drink. Thinking about it, if he had really been in a coma for 3 years, it would have been 3 or 4 years ago. Where did Yi Wuhui go? I haven't heard from him since we parted ways outside the Seun Mountain Villa of the Undead Nation. Sumo sighed inwardly. In the North Cold City, he often drank with Guan Xiong. And the last time Sumo ate was the bowl of refreshing soup in the Tianfu city. At that time, Sumo had paid attention to that bowl of soup, but he didn't find anything unusual. Later, when he found out that Yi Wuhui was a fake, he was also worried. Fortunately, nothing happened. In the restaurant, there were many customers. The first floor was full. The waiter directly led Sumo to the second floor. The second floor was quiet, and there were a few private rooms. As soon as Sumo went upstairs, he saw the young man in white who was drinking alone by the window. The young man was only 17 or 18 years old. His clothes were as white as snow, his face was handsome, and he was in high spirits. Sumo glanced at the young man in white casually. However, the young man in white gave him an extremely familiar feeling. However, Sumo was sure that he had never seen this young man in his previous life. WonderfulBookHouse.com. Chapter 393. His clothes were as white as snow, untainted by a speck of dust. The youth sitting in front of the window was warm under the sunlight, giving people a feeling that they could forget their worries just by looking at him. Early stage deity tribulation. His realm is actually the same as mine, Sumo thought to herself. Of course, he couldn't keep staring at that youth, so he found another empty table and sat down. The waiter called Sumo to order. Unfortunately, Sumo basically didn't know what the dishes on the menu were. He simply asked the waiter to serve 4 of the restaurant's specialties and a pot of good wine. The waiter didn't waste time and went to prepare. The second floor gradually became more and more customers. Most of them were nascent soul-level cultivators and above. There were soul transformation and deity tribulation cultivators, but not a single undead cultivator. Sumo secretly spread out her divine sense. It seemed like the highest-level cultivator in the entire secluded town was middle-stage deity tribulation. As the number of cultivators increased, she naturally heard all kinds of voices. This was also the reason why Sumo chose a restaurant to rest for a while. There were too many people here, and she would most likely hear some information she needed. Sumo needed to understand this world. Senior brother, let's set off tomorrow. At this moment, a cultivator who had just sat down said. That cultivator was middle-stage soul transformation, about 20 years old. He wore a short robe and looked rather capable. Coming with him was a middle-aged cultivator, also middle-stage soul transformation. Yes, we'll set off tomorrow. We've accomplished our goal this time, so we can go back now. Moreover, the 8th of August is the opening of the tide, so we must hurry back. Yes. The young junior brother smiled. I'm also afraid that we won't make it in time for the opening of the tide. If that's the case, it won't be worth it. The opening of the tide every 100 years is a grand occasion for our Qian Palace. There's still a month. We'll definitely make it in time, but we should set off early to avoid any delays. The middle-aged senior brother said, This time, if we're lucky, we'll be able to enter the late-stage deity tribulation. I hope so. The young junior brother sighed. We've been stuck at middle-stage deity tribulation for more than 500 years. The middle-aged senior brother also shook his head and sighed. Sumo had been listening to the conversation between the two cultivators. He had been stuck at the middle stage of the deity tribulation realm for 500 years. It was a feeling that Sumo had never experienced before. It had been about 1,200 years since he started cultivating, and 1,000 of those years were spent drunk. 200 years from a cultivation boy to the middle stage undead realm. If Sumo were to say it out loud, those 2 soul transformation intermediate stage experts would probably be angered to death. On the 8th day of the 8th month, the Qian Palace opened its floodwaters. This was the main information Sumo extracted. From the conversation between the two brothers, he could tell that it was a once-in-100-years event, and it was also an opportunity. However, they did not mention the specific location. At this time, Sumo's food and wine had already been served. Each of the 4 side dishes was exquisite. The waiter reported the names of the dishes: braised white ice fish, stewed sea spirit dragon, stir-fried ginseng slices, mixed 5-color herb salad. Judging from the names and the dishes, they were all seafood. Live off the mountain and live off the sea. Sumo understood this at the time. Nether Passage Town was at the edge of Universe Palace. From the looks of it, it was relatively close to the earthly sea. However, from what the two brothers said, the place where the tide would start was very far away. Otherwise, there was no need to set off a month in advance. Sumo pondered and tasted the braised white ice fish. Sumo had never eaten any of these things before. As soon as the fish entered her mouth, Sumo felt that it was cool and smooth. Moreover, the meat was delicious and chewy. At the same time, wisps of spiritual qi entered her Dan-si. Delicious! Sumo couldn't help but praise it. Immediately after, he tried the other 3 dishes. Each of the 4 dishes had its own special characteristics, and they complemented each other and were full of spiritual chi. Sumo nodded, very satisfied. The spirit food of the netherworld realm was indeed extraordinary. Honestly speaking, the spirit food of the Pure Land continent couldn't compare to the delicacies of the netherworld realm. Sumo picked up the wine pot and poured himself a cup. The color of the wine was slightly red, resembling grape juice. However, it was very fragrant. Sumo first took a small sip. In an instant, her mouth was filled with fragrance, and it wasn't spicy at all. This wine should be considered a fruit wine. Sumo pondered in his heart. What kind of wine is this? Sumo asked. Dear customer, is this your first time in Serenity Town? This wine is called Soul Dragon wine. Its main ingredient is the blood of a sea soul dragon, and then a bit of netherworld 100 fruits, fermented for 7 months, the waiter replied with a smile. This is a specialty of our Serenity Town. Many customers think that this is a fruit wine, but they are completely wrong. This should be sea soul wine. However, the sea soul wine of our Serenity Town is brewed with a special method. However, the waiter was very proud, but his words were interrupted. Waiter, give me another one. 5 liters of sea soul wine. The one who spoke was the white-clothed young man sitting by the window. Wait a moment. The waiter hesitated for a moment, but still turned around and gave the white-clothed young man another one. 5 liters of wine. Dear customer, please enjoy your drink. That the waiter stood in front of the white-clothed young man and did not leave immediately. He hesitated for a moment before plucking up his courage and said, Little brother, you drank 7 liters. 7 liters? Sumo did not react when she heard that. He could drink 7 liters of wine. However, the other customers on the second floor, including the senior and junior brothers who spoke just now, could not help but look at the white-clothed young man in surprise. Sea soul wine 1. 5 liters does not leave the town. This was the warning of the sea soul wine. One must know that immortal wine was different from ordinary wine. Immortal wine absorbed spiritual energy, and the spiritual energy of the sea soul blood was very special. A little nourishing spiritual energy, but a lot of it was poison power that exploded the body. 5 liters of sea soul wine was the limit for ordinary cultivators. Even some cultivators with special physiques would not exceed 5 liters. This had nothing to do with realm. Sea soul dragon blood was a special kind of poison. It was not something that could be neutralized by realm. That white-clothed young man actually drank 7 liters, but he did not seem to be affected. If it was an ordinary cultivator, he would have died from the poison. That white-clothed young man smiled. Brother waiter, what's wrong with 7 liters? Are you afraid that I won't pay for the wine? No, no, no. The waiter shook his head slowly and said awkwardly, Brother, what are you talking about? Not to mention that you are a great cultivator, how can you be short of wine money? Even if it is inconvenient for you, it is our honor to have you come to our restaurant. A few liters of wine is what we should show our respect. I am worried that the after-effects of the sea soul wine will come back, hee. The white-clothed young man smiled and said, Brother waiter, don't worry. I know that 5 liters does not leave the town. However, my physique is special, and I am not afraid of blood poison. Don't worry. No matter how good the wine is, no matter how greedy I am, I won't lose my life, right? That's right. Then please enjoy. The waiter scratched his head. To say the least, if something really happens, it has nothing to do with your restaurant. I'll pay for the wine first. The white-clothed young man smiled, then flipped his hand and took out a spirit stone. A top-grade spirit stone is enough. If there are any leftovers, you can have it. A top-grade spirit stone was enough to eat 10 times in this restaurant. The other cultivators all sighed at the white-clothed young man's forthrightness. Enough. The waiter was so surprised that he hurriedly took it. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother. This is too much, too much. At that moment, Sumo's brows furrowed slightly, because he saw that the spirit stone that the white-clothed young man took out was as black as ink. Moreover, when the white-clothed young man took out the spirit stone, he looked at him meaningfully. Sumo naturally remembered that he just bought the elixir with a completely different top-grade spirit stone. Chapter 394. Top-quality spirit stones were the crystallization of spiritual qi and were quite rare. Top-quality spirit stones in the Pure Land were basically pure white. If there were any impurities, they would have a light yellow color. However, Sumo had never seen or heard of a black top-quality spirit stone. The other cultivators in the restaurant didn't show any objection to the black spirit stone. This meant that black top-quality spirit stones were relatively common in the Netherworld realm. Sumo also wondered if there were multicolored top-quality spirit stones in the Netherworld realm. However, he felt that the look in that youngster's eyes was somewhat meaningful. It seemed to be reminding him. However, this could only be regarded as a small interlude. Sumo remained calm and continued to enjoy the food and wine. Although he used a special spirit stone just now, it seemed that nothing unexpected had happened so far. Besides, with Sumo's undying realm cultivation, even if something really happened, he could deal with it. After paying the spirit stones, the white-robed youngster continued to drink and didn't look at Sumo again. Instead, he calmly looked outside the window, as if there was always something fun going on outside. In the restaurant, many cultivators had been observing the white-robed youngster. After drinking 7 liters of sea soul wine, his expression remained the same. That white-robed youngster was definitely an extraordinary person. Many of the cultivators present seemed to be waiting to see if something would happen to him. However, the white-robed youngster didn't pay any attention to them and continued to enjoy the wine and the scenery. 1 liter, 2 liters, 3 liters. In just an hour, another 3 liters of sea soul wine had been drunk. This time, the white-robed youngster didn't ask for more wine. Instead, he calmly went downstairs. It didn't look like he had drunk 5 liters of immortal wine at all. The cultivators in the restaurant were amazed. Sumo had also been paying attention to the white-robed youngster, but she didn't find anything special or unusual about him. "Senior brother, the world is really big and there are all kinds of strange things. That youngster is really amazing." He drank 5 liters of sea soul wine and didn't show any signs of abnormality? The young cultivator who was talking about the beginning of the Qian Palace said. "Yes." The middle-aged senior brother nodded. "Today, my horizons have been broadened." Back then, I saw a late-stage deity tribulation realm expert drink 5 liters of sea soul wine in this netherworld town. At that time, his expression was also the same. "I didn't expect to see an even more powerful expert today," said an aged late-stage soul transformation cultivator. "Senior, you're quite knowledgeable. I've never seen anything over 1.5 kilograms, another perfected nascent soul cultivator said. "I've seen a deity tribulation cultivator who drank about 2 liters. Unfortunately, before he could leave the town, he collapsed at the end of the street. Then, after recuperating for more than a month, he almost died from the poison," a thin man in the corner said. "That youngster might be lying at the entrance of the town in a while." The customers in the restaurant found a common topic and couldn't help but laugh. Whether one could drink the sea soul brew or not had nothing to do with one's realm. The main factor was one's physique. If a core formation cultivator had a special physique, they could also compete with a deity tribulation realm cultivator in terms of alcohol tolerance. Therefore, this could be considered a pleasure point for low-level cultivators. Sumo didn't say anything and just laughed along with him. Otherwise, he would seem special. "That young man has left the town." At this moment, another cultivator by the window said. "His footsteps are light and his qi and blood are stable. He is no different from his usual state." "Hey! Amazing! Is it possible that our palace of Qian is about to start the tide? The people with special abilities from the other divisions also came to watch the show. The tide is a grand occasion, a gathering of experts. Indeed. I'm also planning to go to the secret realm of the ancient money to take a look. If it's just a small opportunity, it's enough for me to advance to the deity tribulation realm. I've been stuck at the peak of the soul transformation realm for more than 700 years. The atmosphere in the restaurant gradually became more and more lively as everyone kept talking. The topic of the conversation gradually shifted from the white-robed youngster to the tide of the palace of Qian. Sumo listened more and less and finally understood what the tide of the palace of Qian was all about. The netherworld realm was mainly divided into two parts, the inland and the earthly sea. The inland part was the 9 divisions, and the earthly sea was outside the 9 divisions. For the Pure Land, the netherworld realm was more like a core, and the so-called tide of the earthly sea was the bitter samsara earthly sea's tide. However, the tide of the bitter samsara earthly sea was completely different from the tide of other continents. Apart from the Central Palace division, the 9 divisions of the netherworld would have a tide of 100 years. Each tide would last for 9 months. Apart from the Central Palace division, the rest of the 9 divisions were close to the sea, and the coastline was very long. Every one of them had a so-called secret realm. This secret realm was like a special place where the tide of the netherworld was rising. Every 100 years, the secret realm would open, and the tide would fall from the sky, rolling and rolling. It could reach a height of thousands of zhang, resembling a tidal peak. However, they wouldn't rush into the interior of the netherworld and cause a disaster. On the contrary, the cultivators of the netherworld could take advantage of this tide to enter the earthly sea. During the 9 months of the tide of the netherworld, the cultivators of the netherworld could come and go at any time. However, there was a limit to the level of the cultivators that could enter the secret realm. The lowest realm was the soul transformation realm, and the highest was the undying realm. Cultivators below the soul transformation realm, as well as cultivators above the undying realm, couldn't enter. If they didn't enter, they would be directly thrown out, and if they didn't, they would be directly killed. There were countless treasures and opportunities in the earthly sea. As for what they could obtain, it depended on their luck. Those with small luck would obtain some natural treasures, and those with big luck might find an inheritance and advance to the next realm. In short, the tide of each tribe was a great opportunity. For the cultivators of the netherworld, it was a rare chance to gain experience. However, the time of the tide of each tribe was different. Every 100 years, on average, there would be a tribe that would open its tide every 12 to 13 years. Therefore, there were some cultivators who were willing to follow the trend and continuously cultivate. They would travel between the 8 tribes without stopping. However, whether it was the best way to cultivate or not, and whether it was worth it or not, was hard to determine. It was rumored that there were really cultivators that broke through the deity burial realm and entered the eternal realm. However, such cultivators were very rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. However, there were also cultivators who continuously chased after the tide, always doing nothing, wasting their time. Most of the cultivators of the netherworld would only participate in the tide of their tribe every 100 years. But even so, there would be tens of thousands of cultivators every time a tribe opened its tide. What if they came across a great opportunity? After all, cultivating was too difficult. The place where the Qian Palace tribe opened its tide was called the secret realm of the ancient coin. The secret realm of the ancient coin was actually 150,000 kilometers away from the netherworld town, and there didn't seem to be any large-scale teleportation formations in the netherworld realm. Therefore, cultivators would usually travel in advance. 9 months wasn't a long time for cultivators. Everyone was willing to arrive early so that they would have more time to look for opportunities. The 7 or 8 cultivators in the restaurant were all preparing to go to the secret realm of the ancient coin to try their luck. In the restaurant there was a feast. Sumo understood most of the situation and decided to go and take a look. Since he was going to the Netherworld city, he would pass by the secret realm of the ancient coin. Thereupon, the feast was over. Sumo paid the bill and went downstairs, leaving the small town and heading in the direction of the ancient coin town. Chapter 395. The ancient coin realm was located in the southeast of the Chien Palace tribe. According to the beast skin map in Sumo's hands, Nether Passage Town was located in the northeast of the Chien Palace tribe. The distance between Nether Passage Town and the ancient money mystic realm was basically a straight line. However, this straight line was 300,000 li long. In between, there were mountains, rivers, forests, barren valleys, grasslands, and all kinds of terrain. After all, 300,000 miles was not a short distance. It was a good thing that Sumo now had a map in her hands. Almost every place in the Chien Palace was marked, so she wouldn't get lost. Sumo didn't take out her White Lotus seat. Instead, she took out the Sky Wheel flying ship. The White Lotus platform was a little too eye-catching. It was usually a magic tool that would only be refined at the second stage of cultivation. The Sky Wheel flying ship was more suitable for his current identity as an early-stage soul transformation cultivator. The 8th day of the 8th month was the day of the beginning of the tide. With the speed of the Sky Wheel flying ship, it would only take a few days to reach the ancient coin secret realm. Therefore, Sumo was not in a hurry to leave. He boarded the Sky Wheel flying ship, but its speed was not fast. There were some places along the way that Sumo didn't mind carefully observing. According to the time of the Netherworld realm, it was noon when he left the Netherworld town. Sumo had been flying for 2 hours. After crossing a large river, there was a range of mountains in front of them. The mountains were all yellow in color. The mountain was steep and rather dangerous. Among them, 2 mountain peaks stood side by side like 2 doors. The space between them was no more than 1,000 feet. Mount Xianwang, Double Sword Peak. There were markings on Sumo's map. This was a wondrous place of the Chien Palace tribe. It was rumored that the 2 peaks here were originally one complete mountain. Later on, after a great battle between immortals, this mountain peak was split into 2, resulting in its current state. There was an immortal sect in Xianwang Mountain called the Xianwang sect. The Profound Yellow sect was a famous first-rate sect in the Chien Palace. It was said that the strongest ancestor in the sect was already at the god-burying realm. However, this had nothing to do with Sumo. Sumo didn't want to stay here any longer. After passing Mount Xianwang, there was an immortal city called Northern Chien. It was the Chien Palace tribe's #1 immortal city in the northern region. Sumo paused for a moment at this thought. Thus, Sumo steered the Skywheel flying ship forward. The Twin Sword Peak, on the other hand, was tall and straight. There were many strange plants growing on the cliff. Like a crouching tiger, like a spiraling dragon. Sumo was in a relaxed mood. He sat cross-legged on the Sky Wheel flying ship and meditated. The spiritual chi in the 9 underworld was more abundant, and it was suitable for cultivation. Currently, Sumo's cultivation was at the middle stage of the undead realm, and there was still a long way to go before she reached the late stage. However, Sumo's soul suddenly alerted her. Along the way, Sumo had only spread her divine sense within a radius of 100 miles, otherwise, it would have consumed too much of it. However, at this moment, 3 black shadows suddenly appeared within the range of Sumo's divine sense. Deity Tribulation Cultivator? Sumo's heart skipped a beat. Almost at the same time, 3 beams of sword light shot towards Sumo from 3 different directions in the void. Chi-chi, the sound of something tearing through the air was ear-piercing. It was 3 flying swords, and their levels weren't low. They should be 3 godly weapons of the deity tribulation level. Sumo raised her brows. When she first entered the Netherworld realm, she didn't do anything. It could be said that she didn't even know a single person. How could there be cultivators trying to kill her here? Moreover, judging from the strength and direction of the 3 flying swords, they were clearly trying to kill her. However, with Sumo's current strength, it was impossible for 3 deity tribulation level cultivators to kill her. However, Sumo still had to hide her strength, and didn't completely expose her strength. Huff! The sky wheel flying ship suddenly flipped in the air, performing a very difficult evasive maneuver. One of the flying swords was directly dodged by the flying ship. Clang! The other flying sword hit the sky wheel flying ship. Sumo had already modified the sky wheel flying ship, and godly weapons of the deity tribulation level couldn't hurt it. As for the last flying sword, Sumo didn't dodge it. Instead, she waved her hand, and the broken bamboo pole appeared in her hand. Clang! The broken bamboo pole directly hit the flying sword, sending it flying. Although Sumo had dodged all 3 flying swords, Sumo still looked to be in a sorry state, as if she had been lucky. She had managed to confuse the 3 cultivators who were secretly attacking her. Otherwise, if Sumo had revealed the strength of the undead realm, they would have immediately fled. Wind prison. Sword corrosion. Dragon binding. As soon as Sumo dodged the 3 swords, 2 magical techniques and 1 magical treasure headed straight for Sumo. At the same time, 3 black-robed cultivators had already surrounded Sumo in a triangular formation. The 3 black-robed cultivators all wore special masks. The masks were alternating between black and white, making them look like demons. Judging from their stature, they were 3 cultivators, 2 men and 1 woman. They were all at the early stage of the deity tribulation realm. In theory, 3 early-stage deity tribulation realm cultivators to kill an early-stage soul transformation realm cultivator was already a foolproof arrangement. Unfortunately, their information was wrong. Sumo was a fake soul transformation realm cultivator, and she was truly undead. In the void again, a dragon-like whirlwind descended from the sky. A powerful suction almost formed a vacuum, trying to trap Sumo firmly within it. At the same time, a phantom longsword suddenly appeared in the whirlwind. It was 7 or 8 meters long, emitting a dazzling brilliance, and directly pierced toward Sumo's chest. The other magical treasure was shining with golden light, which made Sumo slightly frown. Because Sumo also had that kind of magical treasure. The dragon-binding divine rope. During the Battle of the Immortal Temple on the White Bone Continent, the Lee brothers had used this magical treasure. It was a high-level deity tribulation realm magic treasure, and it was said that there were only 7 of them in the entire Jiryo Nether City. Now there were 2 in Sumo's tattered cloth bag, both of which belonged to the Lee brothers. Unexpectedly, Sumo saw the dragon-binding divine rope here again. Could it be that these 3 cultivators were from Jiryo City? But why did they want to kill me? Sumo's mind raced. At the same time, he formed a seal with his hands, and the undying power in his body slightly dispersed. The divine tribulation realm and the undying realm were separated by a major realm. Moreover, the undying realm was the last realm of the red dust realm. Therefore, unless one was a special person, the 2 realms couldn't be compared at all. Bang! Bang! Sumo didn't use any magical techniques at all. As soon as the undying power dispersed, the 2 magical techniques, wind prison and sword erosion, collapsed. They couldn't do any harm to Sumo at all. Only the divine dragon binding rope was able to bind Sumo in an instant. Unfortunately, it was done on purpose by Sumo. After all, the dragon-binding divine rope could only bind divine tribulation cultivators. The undying power. The 2 male cultivators in black instantly sensed the aura emanating from Sumo. Otherwise, their magical techniques wouldn't have collapsed. However, Sumo was bound by the dragon-binding divine rope again. It was a contradictory situation. Withdraw! The female cultivator in black shouted. However, Sumo didn't move at all. Huh! The 3 cultivators were slightly surprised. However, at this moment they found that they couldn't move at all. The dragon-binding divine rope went straight into Sumo's bag of holding. At the same time, Sumo's figure moved. The tattered bamboo stick in his hand pressed against the forehead of one of the male cultivators. "Who are you? Why do you want to kill me?" Sumo smiled coldly. "Anyone who betrays Juyo City has the right to kill them," the male cultivator in black replied firmly. Sumo was stunned. Chapter 396. Those who betray the netherworld realm should be punished by everyone. These words came out of the mouth of the black-robed male cultivator, and they were very powerful and full of a sense of justice. At that moment, Sumo wondered if he was a traitor of the netherworld. Hee. Sumo was amused. "I'm a traitor? Was there something wrong with the cultivators of the netherworld realm? How could he be a traitor of the netherworld realm?" He had seen traitors of the netherworld before, Li Yuanyi and Li Yuanchu. However, they died under the sword of the mute master. But now that he thought about it, Sumo found it a little strange. From what he had seen, the so-called traitors of the netherworld seemed to have a low realm. Back then, he heard from Linghu, He Huan, that Li Yuanyi and Li Yuanchu were outstanding talents of the netherworld city. However, their final realm was only the late stage of the deity tribulation realm. This didn't seem to fit the current situation that Sumo had seen. He had seen many deity tribulation cultivators in Netherworld Town. Of course, these thoughts only flashed through his mind for a moment. Actually, Sumo had neglected a very important issue of time. The betrayal of Li Yuanyi and Li Yuanchu happened 100,000 years ago. 100,000 years could change a lot of things. None of the traitors would admit that they betrayed the netherworld realm. The guiltless faction deserves to die. The black-robed cultivator whose forehead was pressed against by Sumo sneered. "Oh!" The corner of Sumo's mouth rose. A light flashed on the broken bamboo pole. Crack! The mask of the black-robed cultivator cracked. The black-robed cultivator revealed his true appearance. He was a young man with well-defined features and a righteous face. Although Sumo's bamboo pole was pressed against his forehead, he was still fearless and looked death calmly in the eye. "Are you cultivators of the netherworld city?" Sumo asked. "Humph." The black-robed young man sneered and didn't say anything. His attitude was very clear. He didn't want Sumo to consult him even though he already knew. "I'm not a traitor of the netherworld. You must have misunderstood." Sumo smiled faintly. "If you're a cultivator from 9 Serenity City, you might have heard of Linghu He Huan. I've met her once, and I've even dealt with the traitors of the 9 underworlds with her." "Linghu He Huan?" The black-clothed youth frowned and his expression changed slightly. Obviously, he had heard of this name before. Could it be that they were really mistaken? At this moment, Sumo flipped her hand, and the netherworld token appeared in her hand. Sumo's thoughts were very straightforward. He had the netherworld token in his hand, which was enough to prove his identity. Indeed, it was the wisest choice. However, the moment he took out the token, 3 streams of sword chi suddenly flew out from the void. Those 3 sword chis were even more powerful than the 3 black-robed cultivators' flying swords. Undying sword chi. Sumo was shocked. The sword chi was extremely fast. Just now, Sumo's attention was focused on the 3 cultivators who tried to kill her, and she almost didn't pay attention to her surroundings. She hadn't expected that there were undying cultivators hiding in the mountains. However, the target of the 3 sword chi wasn't Sumo, but the 3 black-robed cultivators. This unforeseen event was completely outside of Sumo's expectations. Silencing them. By the time Sumo realized what was going on, it was already too late. In addition to the black-robed youngster being held down by his own bamboo pole, the other 2 cultivators, 1 male and 1 female, were also imprisoned by Sumo's undying pressure. Undying sword chi. They simply couldn't dodge it. Puff, puff, the 2 sword chis directly pierced through their immortal hearts. As for the sword chi flying toward the black-clothed youth, Sumo flicked the broken bamboo stick in her hand and scattered it. Who is it? Sumo raised his sword-like eyebrows. In the blink of an eye, he spread his divine sense to cover the surroundings. At the same time, a gray-robed cultivator appeared in the void. Early stage Undying Realm. This was the first Undying Realm cultivator Sumo had met since entering the Netherworld realm. However, the gray-robed cultivator was also wearing a mask. A red mask. Sizzle, 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 the long sword in the gray-robed cultivator's hand suddenly stabbed toward Sumo's throat. His sword was extremely cold, fast, ruthless, and accurate. He was clearly an assassin from the world of cultivators. Sumo's realm was higher than the gray-robed cultivators, but the sudden sword attack forced Sumo to take a step back. After all, that was the best way to deal with it. She had to dodge. A streak of light shot through the void. Sumo retreated out of instinct to protect herself, and the gray-robed cultivator was waiting for this moment. His target wasn't Sumo, but the black-clothed youth. Sumo retreated, and so did the gray-robed cultivator. However, he raised his hand. A streak of gray light headed straight toward the black-clothed youth. Not good. Sumo willed it and removed the seal on the black-clothed youth. However, it was already too late. The undying deity tribulation was as easy as flipping one's hand. Moreover, the gray-robed cultivator was an assassin. The black-clothed youth was about to make a move, but that streak of gray light had already embedded between his eyebrows. Boom, boom, in an instant the black-clothed youth's head exploded. The air was filled with the smell of blood and gunpowder. Furthermore, it carried a special fragrance. The gray light that the gray-robed cultivator took out should be similar to the Fire Revolution pill. This sudden change happened in an instant. At this moment, the broken bamboo pole in Sumo's hand had already flown out. However, the gray-robed cultivator didn't want to fight with Sumo at all. After killing the 3 black-clothed cultivators, he directly threw out a talisman. Boom! The talisman exploded, filling the sky with dust. Ugh! At the same time, the gray-robed cultivator let out a muffled groan. Obviously, Sumo's bamboo pole had injured him. However, there was no more movement in the dust. Puff! Sumo exhaled spiritual energy from her mouth. A gust of wind blew, instantly dispersing the dust. However, there was no sign of the gray-robed cultivator. She retrieved the broken bamboo pole, which was stained with blood. The gray-robed cultivator had already disappeared from Sumo's divine sense. Sumo's eyes flashed with killing intent. Killing the 3 black-clothed cultivators in front of him was simply a humiliation to him. Humph! Sumo woke up the little white pig. At this time, this guy was still the size of a wild boar. It seemed that the evil spirit aura in the Black Valley had not been completely digested. However, its eyes were even brighter. Humph! Remember this smell. Sumo brought the blood stain on the bamboo pole to the little white pig's nose. Humph! The little white pig lifted its nose, then nodded, indicating that it remembered. Then, it returned to the broken cloth bag. Sumo waved her hand, gathering the corpses of the 3 black-clothed cultivators in front of her. Sumo used the bamboo pole to break the masks of the other 2 black-clothed cultivators. The man and the woman didn't look old, but they had calm expressions on their faces. It seemed that death was nothing out of the ordinary for them. The gray-robed cultivator only killed them, but didn't take their bags of storage. Sumo picked up the bags of storage of the 3 black-clothed cultivators. After opening them, he couldn't help but frown. The 3 black-clothed cultivators in front of him were all deity tribulation realm cultivators. However, the things inside their bags of storage were pitifully small. There were 3,000 middle-grade spirit stones, 3 black medicinal pills, and 30 black spirit stones. This was the entire contents of the bags of storage of the 3 deity tribulation realm cultivators. Middle-grade spirit stones didn't mean much to Sumo. As for the 3 black medicinal pills, Sumo didn't recognize them. Sumo had seen those black spirit stones earlier. They should be top-quality spirit stones from the netherworld realm. From the looks of it, their bags of storage had been specially organized. When carrying out a mission, they would only bring some necessities. But at this time, Sumo suddenly discovered that there was a small and exquisite token of authority hanging on the waists of the 3 black-clothed cultivators. On top of the token of authority were written, Netherworld Undead. 8. Chapter 397. The Undead of the Netherworld. Looking at the token of authority, Sumo furrowed his brows. Back then, he heard Ling Huahuan and Li Yuanyi mention the undead. Ling Huahuan once said that the cultivators of the netherworld were all undead and had their names in the Book of Heaven. Moreover, they all carried original sins on their bodies. At this moment, Sumo recalled the 16 words on the stone tablet before entering the netherworld. Once you enter the netherworld, don't turn back. With original sins on your body, you will never perish. It seemed that those 4 words all had different meanings. What kind of original sins did the people of the netherworld realm carry? However, Sumo didn't know. However, the netherworld was indeed a special place. Sizzle, but right at this time, Sumo heard a sizzling sound. Then, the 3 tokens of authority emitted flames and gradually turned into black smoke. From the looks of it, once the owner of the token died, the token would automatically dissipate. Undead. It shouldn't be referring to all the cultivators. Otherwise, why would they wear tokens of authority? Sumo pondered, but didn't do anything. Sumo didn't collect the corpses of the 3 cultivators of the deity tribulation realm because he didn't need them. Thereupon, he flicked his finger and shot out 3 flames. Whoosh! The 3 corpses instantly burst into flames. Sumo put away the things in the storage bags of the 3 cultivators and sighed. If you 3 meet that gray-robed cultivator again, I'll seek justice for you. After saying this much, Sumo boarded the skywheel flying ship once again. This time, he used his divine sense to cover an area of 500 kilometers. However, he didn't find anything unusual. The whole mysterious Yellow Mountain range was very quiet. The gate of the mysterious Yellow sect was 3,000 kilometers away, but Sumo didn't go looking for it. Although that gray-robed cultivator might be a cultivator of the mysterious Yellow sect, Sumo didn't want to cause trouble without any evidence. After all, that gray-robed cultivator didn't really attack him. However, Sumo didn't understand why a gray-robed cultivator would kill the so-called undead in the netherworld realm. And why would a black-robed cultivator want to kill him? The sinless branch? Not dead? On the skywheel flying ship, Sumo closed her eyes slightly. He was sorting through all the information in his mind. He was intercepted and killed because the other party thought he was a member of the so-called sinless bloodline. Didn't Li Yuanyi and Li Yuanchu belong to the guiltless lineage? The so-called sinless bloodline might be equivalent to traitors of the 9 underworlds. They had already admitted that they were no longer the undead. Therefore, the cultivators of the netherworld, who considered themselves to be undead, wanted to kill the people of the sinless bloodline, because in their eyes the guiltless bloodline was a traitor. Sumo pondered and felt that her conjecture was very reasonable. If that was the case, it would explain a lot of things. However, who was the gray-clothed cultivator who killed the 3 black-clothed cultivators? Could it be that he was a real sinless cultivator? Very likely. Sumo answered her own question. The sinless faction and the undying faction should be 2 factions in the netherworld realm. From the looks of it, the netherworld realm was the same as the Pure Land. It wasn't a truly peaceful and pure land. Sumo pondered as he steered the boat away. She wanted to go to northern Qian City. After a short moment, 2 figures gradually appeared at the place where the fight took place. They were 2 gray-clothed cultivators with red masks on their faces. One of the cultivators had a blood stain on his left shoulder. It was the gray-clothed cultivator who killed the 3 undead just now. There was a bloody hole in his shoulder due to the bamboo pole. Fortunately, it wasn't a vital point, and the bleeding had already stopped. Senior sister, our information was wrong. That green-cloved cultivator isn't at the early stage of the soul transformation realm. Based on the methods he used just now, he should be at the intermediate stage of the undying realm. The blood-stained gray-clothed cultivator said. If not for my special aura-concealing technique, I'm afraid I would have died here before you arrived. Senior sister, is it possible that the Purple Jade Pavilion wants to kill us with a borrowed knife? The voice of the gray-clothed cultivator became gloomy. Intermediate stage of the undying realm? The other gray-clothed cultivator turned out to be a female cultivator. Her tone was somewhat suspicious. After all, she hadn't seen Sumo with her own eyes. However, she was well aware of how powerful her junior brother was. To be able to injure her junior brother, he should at least be at the intermediate stage of the undying realm. Because they were professional cultivators, assassins from the Nine Nether realm. The Purple Jade Pavilion won't do that. The gray-clothed female cultivator sneered. The Purple Jade Pavilion is a businessman just like us. Businessmen won't cut off their own source of wealth. The Purple Jade Pavilion and the Ink Soul Building, one in the light and the other in the dark, can only succeed. We both understand this point. The gray-clothed cultivator nodded. What senior sister said makes sense. However, the informants of the Purple Jade Pavilion rarely make mistakes. Yes. The gray-clothed female cultivator sighed. Therefore, that green-clothed cultivator is definitely not simple. A sinless person at the intermediate stage of the undying realm is a big fish. The best quality spirit stone of the Pure Land is not something that can be obtained casually. The gray-clothed female cultivator continued. Moreover, he dared to use it for a transaction, indicating that he has nothing to fear. Such a person must be a thorn in the side of those diehards. We will follow him secretly and act according to the situation. No matter who we kill, we will still have business to do. The gray-clothed male cultivator nodded. He paused and said, Right? Senior sister, just now that green-clothed cultivator said that he is not a traitor of the Nine Nether. The gray-clothed female cultivator sneered again. A sinless person will never admit that he has betrayed the Nine Nether, just like those undead people who always think that their original sins cannot be eliminated. In fact, they are all stubborn people. But that green-clothed cultivator also said that he knows Ling Hu He Huan. The gray-clothed male cultivator's voice was a little hesitant, because he also felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. Ling Hu He Huan? The gray-clothed female cultivator's tone changed. The Ling Hu He Huan who has been sleeping in the Nether City and is known as the Undying Beauty? In the entire Nine Nether, there is only one Ling Hu clan. Of course, it is her. The gray-clothed male cultivator said. How is that possible? From what I remember, Ling Hu He Huan has been sleeping for at least tens of thousands of years. If she wakes up, it will definitely cause a sensation in the entire Nine Nether. The gray-clothed female cultivator said. That green-clothed cultivator also said that he and Ling Hu He Huan had dealt with the traitors of the Nine Nether realm. The gray-clothed male cultivator said. The gray-clothed female cultivator's tone became more doubtful. However, she also felt that according to common sense, there was no reason for that green-clothed cultivator to speak carelessly in the situation at that time. Moreover, there was probably no one in the Nine Nether who would dare to speak carelessly about Ling Hu He Huan. That green-clothed cultivator is definitely not ordinary. Let's follow and observe in secret and act according to the situation. If it really doesn't work, we will have to ask the elders in the building to make a decision. All right. We will listen to senior sister's arrangements. The gray-clothed male cultivator nodded. Then, the two gray-clothed cultivators stopped talking and formed hand seals at the same time. Whirlpools instantly appeared under their feet. Then, the two disappeared into the void. At this time, Sumo had just arrived at the northern heaven city. 8. Chapter 398. Northern Qian City was the number 1 immortal city in the northern territory of the Qian Palace. But from afar, the gate of northern Qian City didn't look very majestic. Sumo looked at northern Qian City and felt that it should be about the same size as forgotten capital city. The netherworld was vast but ancient. Its overall size and population should be inferior to that of the chaotic gods' continent. Northern Qian City was also a city that never slept. In fact, there was no clear distinction between day and night in the netherworld realm. The sky here was always emitting a faint light. Northern Qian City was completely open, and it didn't even have a barrier like other cities. It was a free city, an open city. This was the label of Northern Qian City. Sumo didn't encounter any obstacles and directly entered the city. Although Northern Qian City wasn't big, it was very lively and bustling. If the netherworld town that Sumo had been to was compared to Northern Qian City, it was like heaven and earth. Inside the city there were 9 streets. Each street was paved with bluestone, straight and spacious. The few streets in the middle were full of shops, and there were a lot of merchants. The journey had been rather hectic, so Sumo hurriedly glanced around and decided to choose an inn to rest and recuperate. In the end, he chose an inn called Returning to Heaven. The inn wasn't small, and the waiter was very enthusiastic. Sumo chose a separate courtyard for the sake of peace. Of course, the cost of the inn wasn't cheap. After entering the room, Sumo felt very satisfied. Then, he patted his storage bag and took out the little white pig. At this time, the little white pig seemed to have shrunk again, but compared to before, it was still dozens of times fatter. Sumo waved his hand and directly set up a barrier in the room. Rest for a few days. This was Sumo's idea. Whether it was the little white pig or the black-feathered god Hong, they both needed time to adjust. Sumo was more at ease with the black-feathered god Hong in the ragged bag. However, he felt that it was better to see the little white pig with his own eyes. More importantly, the little white pig had a keen sense of smell, and it had smelled the blood of the gray-robed cultivator. If it was in the bag, it wouldn't be able to smell anything. Therefore, releasing it could also serve as a warning. After all, Sumo wasn't sure if the gray-clothed cultivator would appear again. Humph! At this time, the little white pig was as big as a domestic pig. His entire body was snow-white, and his pores were shining. That pair of round eyes was even more clear and spirited. Sumo understood that after devouring those evil souls, the little white pig seemed to be improving bit by bit. Humph! Hurry up and absorb the evil soul chi. At the same time, pay attention to the scent I gave you. If there's anything unusual, inform me immediately, Sumo instructed. Humph! The little white pig nodded. Sumo did not care about anything else and directly sat cross-legged in the room to meditate. In the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. In these 5 days, Sumo did not leave the courtyard at all. For cultivators, this was the norm. The innkeeper of the dry returning inn wouldn't bother him. The little white pig's body finally returned to its original cute appearance bit by bit. However, its body would occasionally emit a faint silver light. Its fangs were longer, and its silver wings were sharper. The little white pig's changes were still very obvious. These 5 days were completely uneventful, and the little white pig did not feel anything unusual. Sumo could be considered to have a good rest. Therefore, on the 6th day, Sumo put away the little white pig and prepared to take a walk in the city. The Qian Palace was the number 1 immortal city in the northern region. Of course, Sumo could not be in a hurry. Moreover, in Nether Passage Town, Sumo heard that in order to catch the tide, he had to prepare some items. Those items were specially made by 9 Gloom, so Sumo naturally did not have them. Therefore, he had to replenish his equipment in this northern Qian city. After leaving the dry returning inn, he did not walk far before he came to a crossroad. There was a small square with a few shops around it. Sumo looked around, then entered an artifact crafting pavilion. The artifact crafting pavilion was neither big nor small, and there were 4 or 5 cultivators inside buying magic tools, talismans, and the like. Their realms were basically nascent soul perfection or early soul transformation realm. From the things they bought, they were most likely also preparing to go to the ancient money realm. Actually, this was very normal, and it was also a business opportunity for the Chi crafting pavilion. Shopkeeper, give me 10 rising sea talismans. Shopkeeper, I want a high-grade tide-breaking boat. Do you still have dragon-slaying nails? Give me 100. The cultivators all wanted the artifacts that would be used on the day of the tide opening. Although the 3 shopkeepers were all core formation cultivators, they were very busy. Sumo was not in a hurry, so he casually looked around the dazzling array of items in the hall. The artifact crafting pavilion usually sold more common artifacts. They were widely used, easy to use, but cost-effective. If it was a special artifact, cultivators would choose to sacrifice and refine it themselves. After taking a look, Sumo discovered that the artifact crafting pavilion really knew how to do business. They actually sold a magical treasure combination pouch for the ancient money realm. A map of the ancient money, a tide-breaking boat, a beast-repelling bell, 10 water-repelling talismans, 10 rising sea talismans, 100 dragon-slaying nails, and so on were all packed into a single storage pouch. These things were basically necessary for going to the ancient money realm to rush to the ancient money realm. Actually, apart from cultivators from the outside world like Sumo, the cultivators of the netherworld realm all had a few things in stock. But just in case, everyone directly bought a combination pouch, and then bought 1 or 2 other items that they needed. A combination pouch cost 100 high-grade spirit stones or a top-grade spirit stone. It was quite expensive, and they didn't accept middle-grade or low-grade spirit stones. However, those things could save one's life at crucial times. Therefore, the business of this shop was surprisingly good. Dear customer, what do you need? A shopkeeper finally took care of Sumo. If you're going to rush to the ancient money realm, I suggest you directly buy a combination of magical treasures. It's convenient, practical, and reasonably priced. Sumo smiled. Actually, that combination of magical treasures was the most suitable for him. Therefore, he naturally wanted to buy it. Thereupon, Sumo nodded. He paid a top-grade black spirit stone and put the bag of magical treasures inside his own storage pouch. Then, he looked left and right. Dear customer, what do you want to buy? The things in our shop are practical, good quality, and cheap. Suddenly, he discovered that there was a special object floating in a corner. That object was very inconspicuous, and it seemed to be an irregular black magical treasure. Or perhaps it wasn't a magical treasure at all, but a fragment of a magical treasure. It was about the size of half a palm, and its whole body was black. In a corner, no one would pay attention to it. However, as soon as Sumo saw it, his soul shook. At that moment, there seemed to be an inexplicable voice reverberating in his soul and mind. Don't ask about this life, don't ask about the next life, don't ask about karma, don't ask about fate. When everything begins and where it ends. If you don't know the beginning, why ask about the end? Sumo had heard that voice before. It came from the other side of life. Chapter 399. The black fragment made Sumo's soul skip a beat. It was a voice from the other side of life, like the sound of an ancient pipa being played by fingers with a copper sleeve. At this moment, Sumo was somewhat absent-minded. Ripples appeared in the golden core sea, as if tens of thousands of years had passed. The blue-golden skeleton on the 9 dragons' immortal platform slightly shook. Dear customer! Senior! The waiter called out to him twice before Sumo reacted. Sumo smiled apologetically. Do you need that fragment? The waiter asked with a smile. What kind of item is it? Sumo asked. The waiter smiled. I won't hide it from you, but I don't know what it is, either. Many years ago, when my master was traveling in the Middle Palace, he accidentally obtained this item. Unfortunately, he couldn't find anything special about it even after studying it for so many years. As such, he decided to sell it in the shop. I see. Sumo nodded. Dear customer, if you're interested, we can sell it as long as the price is right. We can sell it, the shop assistant said, because it's really of little value. How many spirit stones? Sumo asked. 10 top-quality spirit stones or 1,000 high-grade spirit stones. The waiter said. Sumo said with a faint smile. That's not cheap. In the netherworld realm, aside from medicinal pills, there are no cheap things, the waiter said with a smile. My master said that because he doesn't know what it is, he's afraid that he'll regret it. If he buys it cheap, he's afraid that he'll regret it after suffering a loss. As the saying goes, goods are sold to the user. If you really think it's useful, the price is fair. For others, it might be a fragment, but in your hands, it might turn into a treasure. Don't you think so? Hee. Sumo looked at the waiter and said, Waiter, you really know how to buy things. Good. Thanks for your kind words, I'll take this fragment. I'll pay with high-grade spirit stones. Sumo only had a limited number of top-quality spirit stones on him. However, he had enough high-grade spirit stones on him. Therefore, he directly paid 1,000 high-grade spirit stones. The shop assistant was very happy because this fragment had been in the shop for God knows how many years. Almost no one asked about it, and even those who did would shake their heads in the end. Sumo was definitely the buyer. It was always good to sell old goods. In the eyes of the shop assistant, that fragment was not even worth a top-grade spirit stone. Sumo obtained the black fragment. The fragment was cool to the touch. It was made of a special material and was almost weightless. However, the moment she held it in her hand, Sumo felt extremely comfortable. That feeling was extremely special. It wasn't convenient for Sumo to observe it for too long, so she put it directly into the rag bag. Originally, Sumo was a little worried that the ragged bag would reject the fragment. One had to know that only Dharma treasures above the deity tribulation level could be put into a ragged bag. However, the black fragment was successfully placed inside. That meant that its level was definitely not too low. After buying the black fragment, Sumo didn't have anything else to buy, so she left the Chi Refinement Pavilion. The streets were bustling with activity, and there were many cultivators. Sumo was thinking about where to go. But in the crowd, she suddenly saw a figure. That was none other than the white-robed young man she met in the restaurant in secluded town that day. The white-robed young man had a leisurely expression and walked calmly. 5 caddies of sea soul wine. Sumo naturally remembered the white-robed young man's drinking that day, and of course, the look he gave her at that time. At this time, the white-robed young man turned around and happened to see Sumo. There was a smile on his face, as if seeing Sumo here was within his expectations, but also a little unexpected. Immediately, the white-robed young man walked towards Sumo. And Sumo also had a little interest in the white-robed young man. In fact, Sumo didn't believe in fate, but he understood cause and effect. Meeting this young man twice was definitely not a coincidence. Brother, we are really fated. The white-robed young man cupped his fists at Sumo and smiled warmly. Hee. Sumo cupped his fists in return and said with a smile, It's indeed not easy for us to meet each other twice from so far away. Not twice. The white-robed young man shook his head. I've seen brother 3 times. 3 times? Sumo was slightly stunned. That's right. 3 times. The white-robed young man said with a smile. I saw you outside the 9 underworlds door. Hee, if it wasn't for me, I'm afraid you'd have to walk around the Black Valley for a while longer. Oh! Hearing this, Sumo couldn't help but be shocked. Because, at this moment, his appearance was completely different from when he was in the Black Valley. This white-robed young man could actually see through her disguise technique? He saw everything in the Black Valley? Sumo recalled the situation when she came out of the Black Valley, and her heart couldn't help but be moved. It seemed like someone really helped her at that time. Could it be this young man? If that was really the case, this young man was definitely not an early-stage soul transformation cultivator, but a hidden expert. Since that's the case, why don't we find a place to have a drink? Otherwise, I'll always owe you a favor, Sumo said with a smile. Alright. Unfortunately, there's no Serene Town's sea soul wine here. The white-robed young man was rather straightforward, but that restaurant in front is also not bad. The white-robed young man pointed to a 3-story restaurant at the corner of the street, called Northern Gone Drunk. Northern Gone Drunk, good name. Please. Sumo wasn't a bashful person either. The two of them directly ran to that restaurant. The white-robed young man had a good eye. Northern Gone Drunk was a first-class restaurant in Northern Gone City. The two of them found a private room on the 3rd floor and sat opposite each other. Sumo treated them, and the white-robed young man didn't stand on ceremony, ordering the dishes and wine with ease. It seemed like it wasn't his first time here. After ordering the dishes, Sumo cupped her fists towards the white-robed young man again. Thank you for your help in the Black Valley. I'm Sumo, may I ask for young hero's name? People could easily see through Sumo's disguise technique. Therefore, there was no need for Sumo to give him a fake name. She might as well tell the truth. The white-robed young man said with a smile, Brother Su, you don't need to be so polite. This little brother's name is Li Beihan. Li Beihan. Sumo didn't know if this name was real or fake, but she naturally remembered it. Sumo thanks young hero Li again. May I ask which part of the Netherworld realm you are from? Sumo asked again. Hee. Actually, this is my first time coming to the Netherworld realm. It's just that I did a lot of homework before coming here, the white-robed young man said with a smile. Sumo was surprised again. The fact that the white-robed young man wasn't someone from the Netherworld realm was beyond her expectations. The efficiency of this Northern Gone Drunk was rather high. At this time, the waiter had already delivered the dishes. The 8 dishes looked, smelled, and looked good. After the waiter left, the white-robed young man gently waved his hand and set up a barrier. Brother Su, you aren't someone from the Netherworld realm, right? The white-robed young man said with a smile. Oh. Sumo looked at the white-robed young man and nodded with a smile. So, that day in Netherworld Town, you told me not to reveal my wealth, and that there are no top-quality spirit stones in the Netherworld realm? Sumo filled both her and the white-robed young man's cups with wine. Hee. That's right. The white-robed young man raised his cup with a smile. If I'm not wrong, Brother Su must have been intercepted before arriving at Northern Gone City. Congratulations, Brother Su, you're safe and sound. Chapter 400. Clank. Sumo and Li Beihan clinked their glasses and downed the contents in one gulp. Although this Northern Gone Drunken wine wasn't sea soul wine, it had a different flavor. This wine isn't bad, Li Beihan praised. Oh? He. Sumo laughed. How does this wine compare to the sea soul wine from the Netherworld Town? Each has its own merits. Li Beihan put down his glass and picked up the wine jug, filling both his and Sumo's glasses. You have a good tolerance for alcohol, Sumo said. Actually, it's not that I have a good tolerance for alcohol. It's just that my constitution is a bit special, and the so-called sea dragon soul blood poison doesn't work on me, Li Beihan explained. Li Beihan didn't say how special his constitution was, and Sumo didn't ask further. After all, constitution was a secret of cultivators. Brotherly, how did you know that someone would try to kill me on my way here? Sumo changed the topic. Hee. Li Beihan laughed. Brother Su, the Pure Land is a special place. There isn't a single white top-quality spirit stone mine in the entire Netherworld realm. The top-quality spirit stones of the Netherworld realm are all black. After saying this much, Li Beihan flipped his hand, and a black spirit stone appeared in his hand, shining brightly. It was a top-quality spirit stone of the netherworld realm. Sumo looked at the top-quality spirit stone and said with a faint smile, "Therefore, top-quality white spirit stones must have come from outside the netherworld realm, and cultivators with top-quality white spirit stones are considered traders of the netherworld." "That's right." Li Beihan nodded. That day, that nascent soul cultivator from the Purple Jade Pavilion spread the news about you. Whether it's the top-quality spirit stone you have, or the fact that you're a trader, they'll definitely try to kill you. But aren't there cultivators from outside the netherworld realm? Sumo was confused. Wasn't it a bit absurd to judge everything based on a few spirit stones? Apart from traders, cultivators of the netherworld realm never use top-quality spirit stones to trade. At the same time, cultivators of the Pure Land continent can't enter the netherworld realm. What do you mean? Sumo asked. The netherworld realm can be divided into two parts, the inland and the sea. You came from the Black Valley, which is one of the passageways that leads to the exit of the netherworld realm. However, the passage was irreversible. You can leave, but you can't enter. At this point, Li Beihan looked at Sumo and smiled. "I don't know how you got in here, Brother Su, but you shouldn't have appeared in the Dark Valley." "Oh?" Sumo smiled but didn't say anything. Li Beihan didn't ask any more questions and continued, "When you came out of the Dark Valley, you should have seen a boundary stele." "The netherworld realm?" Sumo said. "Therefore, the Black Valley can be considered a gateway to the netherworld realm," Li Beihan said. "Once you leave the Black Valley, walk along the small path. When you reach the main road, you can choose two directions. One direction leads to the Qian Palace Division, and the other to the Bitter Wheel Earth Sea. You chose the direction of the Qian Palace Division. Therefore, we should see a towering stone monument in less than 50 kilometers. The corners of Li Beihan's mouth curled. Sumo raised her glass, and the two of them downed it in one gulp. "That's right. A 300-meter-tall stone monument with red and white characters on both sides." Sumo nodded. "Once you enter the netherworld, don't turn back. With original sin on your body, you will never perish. Gods, demons, immortals, skeletons and beauties, your sins are unforgivable, repent and you will be saved." Sumo said one side, while Li Beihan said the other. "What kind of monument is that?" Sumo asked. That should be the obelisk of the creator of the netherworld realm." Li Beihan sneered. "There are 4 similar monuments in the netherworld realm. They are located at 4 corners, corresponding to the Qian, Zhen, Sun, and Kuan palaces. At the same time, they also correspond to the 4 gates of the netherworld realm. The tower with the words Netherworld Realm written on it on the way here is one of the 4 gates," Sumo said. "Yes." Li Beihan nodded. "That gate is also called the Gate of Life and Death." "Gate of Life and Death." Sumo slightly furrowed her brows. "That's right. The Gate of Life and Death." Li Beihan looked at Sumo meaningfully and said, "You are regarded as a traitor of the netherworld. The fact that you were able to pass through that gate is also a key reason." Sumo was somewhat confused. "Don't look down on that gate," Li Beihan said with a smile. "When you came in, there was nothing strange. But that doesn't mean that anyone can come in through that gate. The corpses of the disciples of that gate can already be piled up like a mountain." "Corpses piled up like a mountain?" Sumo furrowed her brows. "When he entered the city, he didn't see any corpses at all, let alone piled up like a mountain." Li Beihan said, "You didn't see it, did you?" "I didn't see it." Sumo shook her head. "It's right that you didn't see it." Li Beihan nodded and said with a smile, "Because I didn't see it either." Sumo's hand that was raising the wine cup stopped in midair. He really wanted to extinguish the smile on Li Beihan's face. "If you didn't see it, why are you talking nonsense?" "Brother Su, I'm just joking. But I'm definitely not talking nonsense. It's just that it's a long story. Actually, it's all in the past. Those corpses have already turned into the black curtain of the netherworld realm. The black curtain of the netherworld realm is the endless black light that you saw. It's a special kind of barrier. Chapter 401. Of course, Sumo wouldn't say what he was thinking. He frowned and smiled wryly. Isn't that a bit unbelievable? 9 serenities and Tianfu, which one is empty? Which one is real? It really is unbelievable. Li Beihan smiled. But that is just a rumor. It may not be true. If it is true, if 9 serenities moves, Tianfu should have some reaction. So, you are waiting for the Qian Palace to open its tide. Sumo understood what Li Beihan was waiting for. Smart. Li Beihan smiled and nodded. 9 serenities opens its tide day. It should be a chance to prove it. Sumo took a bite of the fish and thought it tasted good. She looked at Li Beihan and said, "But you are in 9 serenities. How do you know Tianfu moves? Even if you prove it, so what? Does it matter if it is or isn't? I can't reveal the secrets of heaven. I have my own plans." Li Beihan took a sip of wine and avoided Sumo's question mysteriously. Haha. Sumo smiled and didn't ask any more. After all, the two of them had just met. It was up to him whether he said it or not. Then, I wish you success. Sumo invited him to drink. The two of them clinked glasses again and drank. Brother Su, what are you looking for in 9 Serenities City? Li Beihan took a sip of his food. Me? Sumo couldn't help but smile. You may not believe me. I am a person who goes with the flow. I don't ask for anything. In such a big 9 Serenities, there must be something I need. Oh, Li Beihan said, actually, I am curious. What method did you use to enter 9 Serenities? You know, if you are not from 9 Serenities, you have to be at least a Break World cultivator to enter. Are you a Break World Almighty? Sumo asked. Haha. Li Beihan shook his head and didn't answer Sumo's question. It doesn't matter if I am a Break World cultivator or not. I can come and go freely in 9 Serenities. In a small 9 Serenities, I can come and go as I please. But you are different. Brother Su, you're just at the middle stage of the undead realm. In theory, it's absolutely impossible for you to enter the 9 Nether. Sumo wasn't shocked by Li Beihan's words. Li Beihan was definitely not an ordinary person. Although in Sumo's eyes, the other party was only at the early stage of the soul transformation realm, that was only on the surface. In Li Beihan's eyes, Sumo's true realm was clearly seen through. Li Beihan's cultivation level must be unattainable. Could it be that he had met a second person similar to Yi Wuhui? However, Sumo was very calm. From the looks of it, Li Beihan was a friend, not an enemy. Otherwise, there would be no need for him to drink with Sumo. With a wave of his hand, he should be able to subdue Sumo. Brotherly, I'm not lying to you. Actually, I entered Jiuyou City by mistake. As I was walking, I suddenly entered the Black Valley. As for why, I don't know. In the past, I've only heard of the 9th Nether City, and I practically know nothing else. Ha! Li Beihan laughed. That's quite believable. If you understood the netherworld, you wouldn't have taken out more than 200 top-quality white spirit stones to buy medicinal pills. That's simply asking for trouble. Sumo smiled bitterly. Indeed. Outside Mount Xianwang, there were 3 black-robed cultivators who wanted to kill me. Unfortunately, they didn't succeed. There are no dead people in the netherworld, right? Li Beihan said. Yes. Sumo said, it's just that their realm was too low. Originally, I wanted to ask them why they were under my control. However, they were assassinated by a gray-robed, ghost-masked cultivator. Killing with a borrowed knife? They didn't see that you were an undying cultivator, and thought that you were really at the soul transformation realm. Even the informants of the Purple Jade Pavilion can make mistakes sometimes, Li Beihan said. Killing with a borrowed knife? Sumo was confused. You don't understand the Netherworld realm. In fact, the cultivators of the Netherworld realm are mainly divided into two factions, the Undying and the Sinless. How are they divided? Sumo asked. This? Li Beihan furrowed his brows. Actually, I'm not too sure. However, the cultivators of the Netherworld can be said to be the earliest cultivators of the Pure Land. The earliest cultivators of the Pure Land. Sumo was dumbfounded. That's right, Li Beihan said. Originally, the Netherworld realm should have been on the surface of the Pure Land. In other words, the current Pure Land continent didn't exist 7 million years ago. In the past, the Pure Earth planet only had one sea and one continent. Sumo listened quietly, as though she was listening to a very distant legend. But in fact, it was a very distant legend. But later, the entire Pure Earth planet experienced a big change. The ancient continent sank, the Sea of Bitterness rose sharply, and a new continent appeared. As a result, it became the current situation. What about Tianfu City? How did it appear? I'm not sure. Li Beihan took a sip of wine. But after that big change, Tianfu City appeared. What kind of big change was it? Sumo asked again. According to ancient records, on the day the heavens changed, tsunamis rose tens of thousands of feet, and the rivers of stars shook. Beyond the heavens, stars and bones fell to the earth. The earth sank and mountains rose in all directions. Black and white fog gathered a myriad of fragrances, condensing for several months without dispersing. After that, heaven and earth reappeared. 3 floating continents surrounded the wheel of bitterness. The city hung in the sky, and the country was buried in the sea. Li Beihan paused for a moment. Everything became what it is today. These few words moved Sumo's heart. What happened on that day? Sumo was talking to herself, not asking Li Beihan. That day. However, Li Beihan's tone slightly sank. That day, the aftermath of the destruction of the 3 realms finally passed through the vast universe and affected this Pure Land. Li Beihan raised his eyebrows, and then suddenly drank the wine in his cup. Sumo's gaze sharpened. This white-robed young man seemed to be suppressing his emotions with the help of wine. The Pure Land evolved, and the Netherworld entered the sea. After that, for some reason, the cultivators of the Netherworld began to talk about original sins. It seemed that they believed that they should have died in that great calamity, but they didn't. Instead, they survived. They called themselves the undead. However, time passed, and generations changed. Gradually, among the undead, there was a saying that they were not guilty. Later, some of the cultivators of the Netherworld were unwilling to stay in the dark Netherworld. They wanted to return to the surface of the Pure Land. So, more than 100,000 years ago, the Sinless branch became a very powerful force. During this time, some cultivators even began to try to climb out of the Netherworld. However, there were almost none who succeeded. If the cultivators of the Netherworld wanted to leave this place, it would be extremely difficult. Even if they succeeded, they would fall by 1 or 2 great realms. This made many of the Sinless branch flinch. They blamed all of this on the conservative undead's control over the Netherworld city. There are even more ancient secrets of the Netherworld city in the Netherworld city. So, although the Netherworld realm seems peaceful now, the contradictions are extremely intense. The undead insist on not leaving the Netherworld city, while the Sinless branch wants to seize control of the Netherworld city and return to the surface. The two sides have been fighting openly and secretly for more than 100,000 years. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. So, in the struggle between the two factions, the carefree faction appeared. This was a general term for some cultivators and sects that didn't take a stand. This group of cultivators didn't care where they lived. No one supported them and no one opposed them. They didn't have any beliefs, and they considered themselves to be businessmen. They only wanted to obtain benefits and resources to cultivate. The Purple Jade Pavilion, the Black Soul Pavilion, the Bliss Palace, and so on all belong to this faction. So, you are in great danger. Li Beihan said a lot in one breath. The Bliss Palace? Sumo was shocked. Chapter 402. The Bliss Palace. Of course, Sumo had heard of it. Back in the days, the Bliss Palace of the White Bones realm was an existence that made people pale at the mere mention of it. Linghu Huan was even more bewitching and charming. Now that she heard the words Bliss Palace from Li Beihan's mouth, Sumo really didn't expect it. There was actually a Bliss Palace in the Netherworld. Thinking of Linghu Huan's identity, the Bliss Palace of the White Bones realm should belong to the Netherworld. But why did it belong to the Carefree faction? Linghu Huan was someone who chased after Li Yuanyi and Li Yuanchu, people who judged the Netherworld, and also claimed to be undead. It was really hard to figure out what was going on. However, Sumo didn't show it. She was just listening to Li Beihan's introduction of the situation in the Netherworld realm. What? Do all three parties want to kill me? Sumo smiled faintly. The undead see you as a traitor, so of course they want to kill you. The businessmen see you as a fat sheep, so they probably want to kill you. Although the Sinless faction won't kill you, I think they won't mind this misunderstanding. They will only add fuel to the fire. All they want is to create trouble for the undead, Li Beihan analyzed. If I'm not mistaken, your identity was leaked by a cultivator of the Purple Jade Pavilion. Moreover, they deliberately leaked it to the undead. At first, they wanted to kill you with a borrowed knife. Then, they killed the undead. However, they didn't expect your realm to be so high. Therefore, they could only kill the 3 black-clothed cultivators, and didn't dare to touch you. If the people of the Purple Jade Pavilion are from the Carefree faction, why would they want to kill the undead? Hee. That gray-clothed cultivator might not be from the Purple Jade Pavilion. The Purple Jade Pavilion kills people without spilling blood, and they're good at killing people with poison. However, based on what you said, I think it was most likely a cultivator of the Black Spirit Tower. The Black Spirit Tower is an assassin organization of the Netherworld. As long as someone bids, they will kill them. Both parties bid, and whoever bids the highest will be killed according to their request. The reason the gray-clothed cultivator killed the 3 undead must be because they were on their assassination list. 3 undead can't kill you, so there's no need to keep them. The Netherworld realm is very chaotic. Li Beihan sneered, then raised his cup and drank a mouthful of wine. It seemed like he didn't have a good impression of Nine Nether. Perhaps there will only be fortuitous encounters in this chaotic place. Sumo accompanied him with a sip of wine. If that's the case, wouldn't there be undercurrents surging when the tide starts? There'll definitely be a fight. Of course, Li Beihan said. Every time the tide begins, there's a hidden battle. The Undying Tribe and the Guiltless Tribe were not only fighting to obtain fortuitous opportunities, but also to weaken the other side. Many so-called fortuitous opportunities were actually killing people and robbing them. Every time there was a tide, many cultivators would die inside. There have even been large-scale mass casualties. However, both sides had a tacit understanding on this point. Neither side blamed the other. In any case, they were all first-stage cultivators. The guardians of the 9 underworlds are calm on the surface, and the ordinary cultivators and civilians are living in peace. Every tide opening is a mutual purification. Sumo's lips curled up. Purification? A strange look flashed through Li Beihan's eyes. He seemed surprised that this word came out of Sumo's mouth. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. How can this be considered a purification? The purification of a hidden realm is terrifying. The Netherworld realm is just using this method to play games. From the looks of it, the Undying Tribe still has the upper hand, right? Sumo asked. If the Undying Tribe hadn't had the upper hand, many cultivators would have already rushed out of the Netherworld and returned to the surface. It's still the same for now. Li Beihan smiled. But what about the future? Who do you support? Sumo asked. Me? Li Beihan shook his head. I'm not a cultivator of the netherworld. Of course, I'll just watch from the sidelines. I only want what's mine, and I don't care about anything else. The netherworld has its own path. After saying this much, Li Beihan raised his cup. Brother Su, if you only came here to travel or to increase your realm, then don't get involved. In that case, don't get involved in this mess. Li Beihan's words were a sincere warning. Don't worry. Sumo also raised her cup. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. Who doesn't want to be free and unfettered? Slap. The two drained their cups in one gulp. After leaving northern Qian City, I'll change my face. Presumably, there aren't many people in the netherworld who have a vision like yours. It won't be easy for anyone to find me. Sumo smiled. Hee. That's right, Li Beihan said. The windmill secret technique isn't ordinary. Sumo was dumbfounded. Brother Li, you actually knew that I used the windmill secret technique? Of course. The Thousand Faces technique is an authentic high-level secret technique of the windmill planet. It wasn't easy for you to inherit this technique in the Pure Lands, Li Beihan said with a smile. Where is the windmill planet? Sumo hurriedly asked. This was something he had always wanted to know. The windmill planet and the Pure Lands are separated by 3 realms. For the current you, it's out of reach. There are many things that you still don't understand. Li Beihan gave Sumo a very serious look. Brother Su, to you, it doesn't matter. Brother Su, for you, nothing else is important. There's only one thing that's important. To increase my realm. Sumo smiled bitterly. That's right. Li Beihan nodded, then filled Sumo and himself with a cup of wine. Brother Su, thank you for your hospitality today. Let's drink and talk to one's heart's content. Now I have to take my leave. You and I are fated to meet again in the Netherworld City. Good. Thank you, Brother Li, for telling me so many secrets. Although Sumo wanted to ask more, it wasn't convenient for him to do so. The two raised their cups and drank together. Brother Su, I have something for you. As he spoke, Li Beihan took out an item from his bosom. It was a jade pendant. This jade pendant hides a strand of divine sense. This divine sense is enough to ensure your safety in the netherworld. In times of crisis, it will ensure your safety. Thank you. Sumo didn't stand on ceremony and took it directly. Take care. Li Beihan cupped his fists and smiled. I hope that Brother Su can increase your realm and awaken as soon as possible. Beihan, farewell. Sumo also cupped her fists and wanted to say something. However, Li Beihan's figure flashed and disappeared. At the same time, the barrier that Li Beihan had set up earlier also disappeared. Sumo spread out her divine sense, trying to find him. However, even though she covered the entire Beihan city, she couldn't find any trace of Li Beihan's aura. Hiss! Sumo held the jade pendant in her hand and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The jade pendant was in the shape of a budding white lotus. It was cool to the touch and was definitely not an ordinary object. After thinking about it, Sumo felt that the reason why she met the white-robed youth Li Beihan twice was most likely because he wanted to help her. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence in the world? With Li Beihan's realm, why would he tell so many secrets to an undead realm cultivator like her? Li Beihan? Beihan City? Sumo couldn't help but smile bitterly. It seemed that she was fated with the words, Beihan. Chapter 403. After Li Beihan left, Sumo didn't leave immediately. Instead, he sat in the restaurant for a while. He poured himself a cup of wine and drank by himself. At the same time, he recalled Li Beihan's words. According to Li Beihan, the 9 underworlds was indeed very chaotic. And for Sumo, the most important thing right now was to increase his cultivation. Cultivation was the foundation of everything. Sumo put away the jade pendant Li Beihan gave him and drank the last cup of wine. Then, he also left Beiqian to get drunk. At this time, Sumo was in no mood to do anything else. He returned to the Qiangui Inn. Arriving at the inn and returning to his room, Sumo immediately set up an enchantment. Today, not only did he meet Li Beihan, but he also bought a mysterious black fragment. The shock to his soul was something that Sumo didn't dare to underestimate. At this moment, Suemo had a thought and patted his storage pouch. The fragment of the black artifact was already floating in front of him. Sumo squinted his eyes and carefully examined it. The black fragment was only the size of a palm and was very irregular. It should be the result of the artifact shattering. On it there were strange runes. Unfortunately, Sumo couldn't understand a single one of those runes. However, he seemed to have seen those runes before, but he couldn't remember where. Buzz, buzz, the black fragment floated in the air, slightly vibrating. It contained a mysterious power. This power hadn't been displayed in the artifact forging pavilion. But at this moment Sumo felt it. For Sumo it was a kind of summoning. Thus, Sumo very naturally extended a finger and lightly touched the black fragment. Buzz, buzz, the black fragment began to hiss. It seemed to feel everything it was familiar with. At this moment, Sumo's body shook. At the same time, his Dan-si began to churn. Each wave was higher than the previous, like a rising tide. The immortal foundation skeleton on the 9 dragons' heaven's altar glowed with a golden light. Sumo's expression changed slightly. He could even feel that this black fragment once belonged to him. Buzz, 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 the black fragment seemed to be sobbing. Then, its body suddenly emitted a blinding brilliance, black and white brilliance. That brilliance was mixed with an indescribable and indescribable power. Caressing the longsword, singing the song of treading on the snow, lasting for thousands of years, passing by in a flash. Sumo had heard that demonic song before. Suddenly, the black fragment turned into a beam of light and flew directly into Sumo's Dan-si. At that moment, Sumo wasn't prepared at all, nor did she have any choice. The black fragment was like an outsider, but also like a master returning home. The tides of the elixir sea seemed to be dancing, and the 9 dragons' deity platform softly hummed. After Sumo reached the undead realm, the skeleton sitting cross-legged on the 9 dragons' fairy platform had turned from cyan to pale gold. However, at this moment it emitted pure golden light. Everything seemed to be welcoming the arrival of the black fragment. That was definitely something Sumo had not expected. The black fragment was in his Dan-si, but it was not under his control. It flew in a circle, as if patrolling. Soon, the Dan-si calmed down, and so did the skeleton. The black fragment and the 9 dragons' fairy platform had merged into one. Sumo's 9 dragons' fairy platform was like a disc. The black fragment had occupied a part of it. However, there was no movement on the 9 dragons' fairy platform. Only the part occupied had turned black. Or rather, the black fragment had embedded itself on the 9 dragons' fairy platform. Chi, a wisp of black and white light curled up from the bottom to the top of the skeleton. At that moment, Sumo suddenly felt a little dazed. The demonic song reverberated in his ears. Then, he felt his Dan-si expand endlessly. Expand, expand. At some point, Sumo was standing in the air above his Dan-si. The golden sea was covered in layers of waves. However, the color of the sea seemed to be turning black bit by bit. It was Sumo's first time seeing a black sea. Gradually, Sumo found himself on an island. Behind him was a deep valley. At that moment, a white sailboat suddenly appeared on the sea. The sailboat was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it was in front of Sumo. The sailboat was not big, only about 10 feet long. A middle-aged cultivator stood alone on it. The cultivator wore a silk scarf on his head and a long robe. He was dressed like a scholar. However, he only had one arm. That person looks familiar, Sumo thought. However, He could not remember where he had seen that one-armed cultivator before. He only felt that the cultivator was very familiar. "Young master, how are you?" the middle-aged scholar asked with a smile. "I'm fine. Thank you for your hard work, sir. It's not my first time experiencing the pain of reincarnation," a man's voice replied. Suemo heard the voice clearly, but he didn't see the other person at all. Moreover, the voice was right next to his ear. "Who is that?" Sumo asked in his heart. "Sir, when are we returning to the desolate soul realm?" the voice asked again. "Very soon. This time, we must get the demonic bell." The middle-aged scholar looked at Sumo and said, "I will let my soul-body avatar travel with young master." At this moment, Sumo realized that the voice just now was actually made by him. However, that was not what Sumo thought. He was actually living in another body. Sumo was shocked. What was going on? And, "Thank you, sir. The revival of Tai Huang is just around the corner. Xiao Luo is willing to step on thousands of corpses and reach the peak of Tai Huang." The voice was very determined. Cough, 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 cough. However, then Sumo heard the sound of coughing. This body did not seem to be in good condition. Sumo was a little dazed at this time. What was going on? How could he be in another person's body? Who was Xiao Luo? Whoosh! A gust of wind blew, and the sea in front of Sumo instantly disappeared. In front of him there was chaos. In the void there were endless black winds and thunderbolt. It was a kind of apocalyptic scene, and Sumo felt extremely depressed. The earth shook, and there seemed to be a pitch-black hall in the distance. Kakik! In the void there was a purple-clothed woman with long gray hair and a hideous ghost mask. There was another black-clothed male cultivator, his long hair fluttering, forming a seal with his hands. "How many lives do the two of you have?" The black-clothed cultivator smiled at him, but that smile was too strange. Only now did Sumo realize that the middle-aged scholar was standing next to him. "One. What a pity! I have more than one life." The black-clothed cultivator answered his own question. Looking again, the black-clothed cultivator's expression changed, and he quickly formed a seal with his hands. The black light and blood light around him erupted like a volcano, spewing out. Two divine lights were like serpents flying out of the sea, dragons soaring the 9 heavens. "Wang Han, don't!" the purple-clothed female cultivator screamed at the top of her lungs. Boom! At that moment Sumo understood. The black-clothed cultivator wanted to self-destruct. Boom boom! The middle-aged scholar next to him also chose to self-destruct. The sky was filled with power, and a huge vortex appeared in the void. 2 doors of light opened. This was a spatial crack that was forcibly torn open by power. Sumo felt dizzy. He directly rushed out of the door of light. Outside the door of light, he suddenly saw a bluestone plaza. At that moment, a young cultivator in a white robe was standing in the plaza. Isn't that the black-clothed cultivator from before? But that cultivator's cultivation level seems to have advanced a step. Sumo thought. "Who from Crimson Snow Pavilion wants to fight again?" the white-clothed cultivator challenged. "Northern Chill Fiend Cultivator." Sumo did not know whose voice it was, because in his vision, there was only that white-clothed cultivator. As for the white-robed cultivator covered in devil chi, he was looking at him coldly. "I am Murong Huang." Suemo could clearly hear the sound coming from his throat. Chapter 404. Murong Huang? Who was this? Wasn't it someone who called himself Xiao Luo just now? Suemo felt as though he was no longer in control of himself. He had really become a soul residing in someone else's body. Whoosh! The scene in front of Sumo changed once again. In the empty room, Sumo felt that he was sitting on a high chair. There was no one in the room. The Tianhuang sect has endured for nearly 10,000 years, and the Murong dynasty has been established for 4,000 years. But everything must have a beginning. Sumo felt that Murong Huang's voice was slightly trembling, and even a little excited. "Young master, please give me your orders." In the empty room there was only a reply, but no one else was in sight. Tai Huang. Demon lover. Demon coffin. Angel. Murong Huang muttered to himself. Sumo felt that he was leaning back on the chair, exhausted. Sumo could empathize with that kind of exhaustion. Tai Huang, demon lover, demon coffin, angel, it was Sumo's first time hearing these words. But he felt that they were both unfamiliar and familiar. Those words were like pebbles that were thrown into his sea of consciousness, causing waves of ripples in his sea of consciousness. Cough, 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 cough. Murong Huang coughed. Sumo had heard that sound before. Because Xiao Luo's coughing was exactly the same. Whoosh, the room in front of Sumo disappeared. It was a garden filled with the fragrance of peach blossoms. Sumo felt that he was sitting cross-legged under a peach blossom tree. He wore a black robe with golden edges, and half of it was scattered on the grass. "Your Highness, the Empire's 3,000,000 cavalry has been assembled. Your Highness, please give your orders," someone in the garden asked. But Sumo still could not see anyone. "Pass down my orders. 3,000,000 cavalry will pass through the domain gate in 3 days. Split into 7 groups and head straight for the eastern ridge. Those who do not surrender to the Murong dynasty in the eastern ridge will be killed." Murong Huang's voice was cold. "Yes. Pass down my orders to Pejuan. 3 days later, assemble the troops and wait for orders at Black Water." Murong Huang issued a series of orders, but unfortunately, Sumo could not understand them. "Young master's wisdom is as vast as the sea. I admit my inferiority." The one-armed middle-aged scholar appeared again. "Zio Immortal Token, the 5 regions moved, everyone pointed their swords at Dongling, but young master wants to attack Black Water. An ingenious scheme. What a brilliant plan. I merely borrowed the power left behind by the Mr. back then to set up a trap. The Murong dynasty's armored cavalry can sweep through the desolate sea, but that is in the mortal world. The Battle of East Ridge was a battle between cultivators. What's the use of ordinary weapons?" the middle-aged scholar asked. "Because Buddhism is merciful. Immortals do not kill mortals. In the eyes of a Buddha, he doesn't care about friend or foe, he only cares about the common people. How stupid is that?" Murong Huang smiled strangely. "But I'm a devil, and I want to succeed on the bones of 10,000 people. I am a devil, I want to achieve success on the bones of 10,000 people." Sumo heard Murong Huang's words loud and clear. However, it was like a dagger stabbing into Sumo's immortal heart. That kind of pain was indescribable. "I am a demon? Am I really a demon?" Sumo's head hurt so much that he wanted to groan, but like a nightmare, there was no sound. Cough, 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 cough. Suddenly, Murong Huang's body bent over, and he could not stop coughing. Murong Huang covered his mouth with his hand, and Sumo saw a black bloodstain on his hand. Then, the bloodstain began to expand infinitely. Finally, it became a hazy purple blood light. "Mr. Y?" The scenery changed again, and Sumo felt like he was holding a 5-colored light. "You would rather suffer the eternal calamity than seek freedom from the saints. Mr., what exactly do you want?" Sumo felt like he was crying. The pain in his heart spread out uncontrollably. "Eternal Tai Huang, immortal star monarch." Sumo felt like he was standing on top of a mountain. There was nothing around him, but there were tens of thousands of people shouting. Boom, boom, boom. War horses neighed and military cannons roared. "You will pay the price for Tai Huang, and you will accompany Mr. in death." That was not what Sumo wanted to say, but he felt that he had said it, and it was filled with dense killing intent. Sumo seemed to feel his empty eyes. "Mr. is dead. Kill. Kill. Endless killing." Sumo was killing, but he did not know who he was killing. However, he could feel the stench of blood, and the killing intent was soaring. Sumo felt very oppressed. His dantian and sea of consciousness were in extreme pain. His soul was trembling. A girl in a black dress floated in midair. She had a pair of gray eyes, and she controlled a strange flying blade. She could actually transform into a crow. She was called Crow. Another peerless man, dressed in snow-white robes, and had a lotus-like temperament. His starry eyes were like water, and his smile was like the spring breeze. A faint green halo emitted from the man's body, untainted by a speck of dust, and had a heavenly charm. His name was Li Shui. Those people all appeared in Sumo's memory. A woman with a sinister ghost face. Her purple robes fluttered in the wind. Her snow-white hair danced in the wind. Sumo had seen that female cultivator before. However, her hair was completely white. Her name was Shunyan. An old man with snow-white eyebrows and a black robe like ink. He was tall, standing in the void, majestic, and full of killing intent. He was the emperor of Taiwan, Shao Heavenly Court. These people appeared one by one, and then began to kill each other. The fog was thick and Sumo was in a trance. He could vaguely see many monks, but he couldn't see their faces at all. Boom, boom. Sumo did not know what kind of battle it was. Was he in the middle of it? He felt like he was watching a play, but he was in the middle of it. The purple-robed female cultivator had fallen. The male cultivator that he had seen twice appeared. This time, he was not dressed in black, nor was he dressed in white, but in a green robe. A black-robed Buddha figure floated above his head, and an undying ancient lamp burned in front of him. At the same time, a black coffin stretched across the sky. The moment he saw that coffin, Sumo's soul trembled violently. It was an uncontrollable feeling. He wanted to shout, and there seemed to be an inexplicable power in his body. His sea of consciousness was surging with monstrous waves. Boom, boom, the heart of the Buddha and the demon never fall into depravity, and only I am supreme, the green-robed cultivator said sternly. The seal was like a star, blurred and indistinct. Sumo did not know what technique it was. Shunyan, you are my moment and eternity, the green-robed cultivator said in a deep voice. At that moment, Sumo felt his body quickly escaping. Otherwise, he would die. Between the mountains, one step was 1,000 miles. The body that Sumo was residing in was rapidly retreating from the battle area. The 100,000 mountains, the endless eastern ridge. Sumo could not control everything by himself. He was like duckweed, drifting with the current. However, at this time, he saw a woman coming toward him. It was a beautiful woman in a blue dress, with a graceful figure and curves. Sumo was stunned. She seemed to have seen this woman somewhere before. Dongfang Jiu'er? Wasn't that the 9th princess of the Dongfang clan? Although there were some differences in appearance, Sumo could conclude that it was the same woman. The same aura, the same eyes. Puff! However, Sumo felt that she had reached out and casually struck with her sword. Blood splattered as the sword pierced her heart. The blue-robed female cultivator did not even have a chance to react. Her eyes were filled with astonishment, fear, and unwillingness. She wanted to see the person she loved. She did not even know why she was killed. However, Sumo understood. Because she was blocking Xiao Luo's way. Whoosh! Dongfang Jiu'er's blood instantly spread, covering the entire sky in an instant. Dongfang Huan. At that moment, Sumo's sea of consciousness finally set off an uncontrollable wave. Countless memory fragments shone like stars in his mind. The black fragments were as bright as the sun. Wah! Inside the Qianguiyin, Sumo stood alone inside the boundary and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. However, his eyes instantly became clear. Just now, it was a dream. I am Xiao Luo. I am Murong. A threatening cold light flashed in Sumo's eyes. Chapter 405. Qianguiyin. Sumo gently wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with the sleeve of his robe. His brows were tightly furrowed, and there was an indescribable hostility in his eyes. At that moment, Sumo's dancey had yet to completely calm down. The black fragment on the Nine Dragons deity platform gave off a faint glow. The skeleton immortal root seemed to be covered in a layer of black and white mist. The immortal root no longer looked like a skeleton, but more like a person sitting cross-legged. However, the person's eyes were slightly closed, as if they were open. The hostility in Sumo's eyes gradually faded. "I am Xiao Luo, and I am also Murong Huang." Many memories appeared in Sumo's mind. They were all of Xiao Luo and Murong Huang's memories, but they all stopped at the moment when Xiao Luo killed Dongfang Huan. Sumo did not know what happened after that. Tai Huang's successor, Prince Murong, a fiendish cultivator, 10 reincarnations, the bloody battle at Brahma Temple, all of these memories lit up like stars, surging in like a tide. 3 realms, desolate sea. That's my past life. No, or rather, I don't know how many past lives it was. For a moment, Sumo could not accept everything. However, many memories came rolling in. The Tai Huang legacy, the Great War, the bloody battle at East Ridge. Many past events gradually became clear. Fairy Huan Hua, the fiendish cultivator Amu, the Ghost Lord's successor, the Demon Crow. Sumo remembered all of them. Mr. 1. Sumo lowered her head and could not help but feel sorrowful. All of Wen Muron's memories were abnormally clear in Sumo's mind. A teacher and a friend. Wen Muron's position in Xiao Luo's heart was definitely higher than anyone else's. Wooer, plum blossom spirit? Sumo's heart skipped a beat. In Xiao Luo's memory, there was not much about Wooer. In fact, Sumo felt that in Xiao Luo's heart, Wooer was just a companion of the Tai Huang bloodline. However, Sumo thought of Mu Jinghong. Plum blossom? Mu Jinghong. Especially the azure-robed Mu Jinghong he had seen in the soul storage altar cave abode. There were plum blossoms on his glabella. It was clearly a person. At the same time, Sumo thought of the painting in Mu Jinghong's abode on 5 wheels. Wasn't the absolutely beautiful man under the old plum tree in the painting Xiao Luo? Or rather, wasn't that him? He was waiting for the mortal world, waiting for reincarnation. Sumo recalled their previous conversation. She seemed to be waiting for herself. What was going on? How ridiculous! Sumo's mind was still in a mess. Xiao Luo's and Murong Huang's memories came flooding in and intertwined with each other. At that moment, Sumo really didn't know who she was. At the same time, many of his knowledge and techniques regarding the 3 realms were also awakened in his memories. The 3 realms were divided into the Desolate Sea Divine Continent, the Demon Continent's Azura World, and the Heaven Continent's Infinite Realm. The levels were divided into 5 major levels: cultivation, spirit, soul, tribulation, and immortal. In Sumo's recovered memories, Xiao Luo was only at the upper stage of the water tribulation realm, which was similar to the middle stage of the deity tribulation realm in the Pure Land. And Sumo's undead realm was already at the 4th or 5th stage of the perfected immortal realm in the 3 realms. In comparison, Sumo's realm should be above Xiao Luo's. However, the techniques in Xiao Luo's memories were definitely something that Sumo could only come across by chance. Tai Huang Inheritance, Heaven Destroyer Ancient Scroll, Devil Cultivation Technique. The 3 realms' inheritance was definitely not ordinary. From this point of view, Sumo benefited a lot. Sumo slowly sat down and crossed his legs in the room. For a whole 7 days, he didn't move at all. The black fragment had awakened part of Sumo's memories. However, Sumo didn't know what the black fragment was. There was no such thing in his memories. At the same time, Sumo also understood that the memories he awakened were only a small part of it. He didn't know what happened after that. According to Guan Xiong and Miao Long only those above the Eternal Realm could reincarnate to the Yizang Realm. He himself reincarnated to the Yizang Realm, which meant that he was definitely a rebirth realm cultivator in the three realms, or an eternal realm cultivator. However, from the water tribulation to the eternal realm, it could be said that he went from mortal to immortal. The path to immortality was long. Sumo didn't know how many years had passed after he killed Dongfang Huan, and what happened. 7 days. Sumo had been merging all of Xiao Luo and Murong Huang's memories, or rather, he was adapting to everything. Because sometimes, even Sumo didn't know who he was. A devil twin, and then reincarnated again. Sumo smiled bitterly in his heart. To him, Xiao Luo and Murong Huang were still a distance away. It seemed like he could only continue to be his own Sumo. Otherwise, he would be lost in reincarnation, unable to extricate himself. In reality, he really was Sumo. Currently, he could only be considered to have inherited part of Xiao Luo and Murong Huang's memories. However, when the black fragment entered the sea, it brought great changes to Sumo. In 7 days, Sumo's techniques were greatly enriched. Although Sumo was superior in terms of cultivation, Xiao Luo's techniques were incomparable to Sumo's. Sumo spent the 7 days merging. On the 8th day, he slowly opened his eyes. Sumo was still in the mid-stage Undying Realm, and he could break through to the late-stage Undying Realm at any time. However, there was a trace of vicissitudes and ruthlessness in the depths of his eyes. The recovery of part of his memories had a certain impact on Sumo. Reincarnator. Now, Sumo was sure that he came from the three realms. Moreover, the three realms held great significance to Sumo. Therefore, he wanted to know everything about the past, and he wanted to find out why the three realms had been destroyed. At the same time, he was even more determined to save that green-robed Mu Jinghong. Plum Blossom 5 should know more. That woman was definitely more than just a companion to him. There seemed to be a cold but gradually rekindled fire in Sumo's heart. The road was longer. Sumo took a deep breath, then the corners of his mouth curled up as he stood up. He was going to leave the Dry Guest Inn and northern Qian City. After recovering part of his memories, Sumo felt an inexplicable sense of irritation in the netherworld realm. However, he still had to go to the Qian Palace sect. If there was an opportunity, Sumo would naturally want to increase his realm as quickly as possible. Thereupon, Sumo left the room and went to the front yard to settle the bill, leaving the Dry Guest Inn. When Sumo came out of the inn, he had already changed into a young cultivator. He was wearing a black robe, and he looked somewhat gloomy. However, it was Xiao Luo's favorite color. At this time, Sumo's temperament was quietly changing. Whether it was Xiao Luo or Murong Yao, they were both born to be kings. Sumo wanted to bring back the kings. Sumo didn't stay in northern Qian City any longer, and headed straight in the direction of the secret realm of the ancient coin. In total, Sumo stayed in northern Qian City for more than 10 days. In order to not expose his identity, he didn't use the Skywheel flying ship, but another flying treasure. Although there was a slight difference in speed, he would be able to reach the secret realm of the ancient coin within half a month. Just as Sumo left northern Qian City, 2 cultivators appeared not too far away from the city. They were the 2 gray-robed masked cultivators from outside Mount Xianhuang that day. However, they didn't know where Sumo was. Chapter 406. Outside northern Qian City. The 2 gray-robed cultivators had ferocious expressions on their faces. The gray-robed male cultivator who was injured by Sumo back then didn't have any scars on him. Senior sister, he completely disappeared. Even his aura is gone, the gray-robed male cultivator said coldly. I even suspect that his soul has already been destroyed. How could such a cultivator disappear in northern Qian City? The gray-robed female cultivator shook her head. He must have realized something. Then, he used a secret technique to hide everything. The gray-robed male cultivator nodded heavily. However, it's really amazing that he could disappear without a trace right under our noses. The sinless lineage actually has such an outstanding person? The gray-robed female cultivator seemed a little unconvinced. Ching Hun, immediately send a message to the elders in the building. We need the help of the tracking spirit beast. Otherwise, we'll have no choice but to let him go after 3 days. Yes. The gray-robed cultivator's name was Ching Hun. Ching Hun made a hand seal with both hands. A small teleportation formation appeared in front of him. Then, a letter talisman flew out of his storage bag, directly disappearing into the teleportation formation. He went all the way south. I reckon he's most likely heading for the opening of the ancient money secret realm. Let's go all the way south for now. Let's try our luck. The tracking spirit beasts should arrive soon, the gray-robed female cultivator said. If we're wrong, we'll go back. All right. The gray-robed Ching Hun nodded. After saying that, a large shell appeared under their feet. It was a relatively common flight-type magical treasure in the netherworld realm. Whoosh! With a thought, the two of them instantly flew 100 miles away. In another corner outside northern Qian City, the white-robed young man, Li Beihan, watched the two gray-robed cultivators leave with a faint smile on his face. An early-stage Undying Realm and a middle-stage Undying Realm cultivator wanted to kill Sumo? That was simply wishful thinking. To kill Sumo, one had to be at least a deity burial realm cultivator. In the mortal realm, Sumo was absolutely invincible. If the Black Spirit Pavilion really dared to make a move on Sumo, it would be a disaster. At this time, the space beside Li Beihan slightly fluctuated. A figure gradually materialized. It was a white-robed, white-haired, wrinkled old man, and he was actually a hunchback. His face was long and thin, his body was bent, and his back was high. The white-robed old man looked like a white camel. His name was indeed White Camel. Young master. Bai Camel saluted Li Beihan with a smile on his face. Camel, in a moment, follow those two Ink Soul Pavilion cultivators. Li Beihan said, but don't act rashly and alert them. Keep them, they might still be useful. Yes. White Camel nodded, then asked, Then, young master, you're not going to the ancient coin hidden territory? I'm not going. After all, the opening of the Qian Palace was a small matter. Naturally, someone will report back to me about the situation in Tianfu City. Li Beihan smiled and said, The things I'm looking for should be in the 9 nether city of the Central Palace tribe. I'll take this opportunity to take a stroll around the Nether City. I'll leave the ancient coin pocket realm to you. Rest assured, young master. This old servant will definitely take care of everything. The old camel smiled. Of course I'm at ease with you taking care of things. Li Beihan smiled again. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Not to mention, that's not even counting the 2 mantises. Sumo, you have to be careful. Then this old servant will take his leave. Camel nodded. Li Beihan also nodded. The old camel lowered his head slightly, then disappeared. Li Beihan looked in the direction where these groups of people left, paused for a moment, then said to himself naturally, Sumo, something seems to have happened to you. I hope that everything is good and not bad. Li Beihan first frowned, then seemed to think of something, but then shook his head. Then, he disappeared on the spot. The ancient coin hidden territory was in the southeast of the Qian Palace tribe. To be precise, it was near the border between the Qian Palace tribe and the Central Palace tribe, but it belonged to the Qian Palace tribe. There was an ancient town there, called the Town of Ancient Coin. On the opening day, the entire ancient town would be covered by the bitter wheel Earth Sea, and then become the entrance to the secret territory. And after the tide receded, the Town of Ancient Coin would return to its original appearance. This was a very miraculous thing. Originally, the size of the Town of Ancient Coin was not big, but as the number of cultivators rushed to catch the tide increased, its size increased. Although it was not as big as an ordinary immortal city, it was definitely not a small town. After leaving the northern Gon city, Sumo did not stay in the other parts of the Qian Palace tribe for long, only occasionally looking around. There was not much delay on the way. Therefore, when he arrived at the town of Ancient Coin, there were still 7 days before the opening of the tide. Now, there were already many cultivators gathered in the town of Ancient Coin. These cultivators were basically at the soul transformation and deity tribulation levels. They came early so that they could be fully prepared. As for undead realm cultivators, they would usually arrive on the day of the beginning of the tide. It was said that after the opening of the tide, the Ancient Coin secret territory would be another spacetime. It was extremely vast, and soul transformation and deity tribulation cultivators could only move around the periphery of the Ancient Coin secret territory. Only undead cultivators could enter the depths of the secret territory. Of course, the deeper one went, the higher the chance of finding opportunities, and the higher the grade of the treasures. It could be said that there was no competition between the soul transformation, deity tribulation, and undead realms. The town of Ancient Coin was very lively. Sumo did not come late, but he managed to find a small room in an inn with great difficulty. Actually, Sumo did not need to find an inn, but he wanted to be as low-key as possible. An inn could be considered a place to stay. An early-stage soul transformation cultivator staying in a small inn would almost not attract attention. Sumo stayed in this inn peacefully for the night. Unexpectedly, the next day, the inn's waiter knocked on his door. "Senior, sorry to disturb you." The inn waiter was a middle-stage core formation cultivator. His face was full of smiles. "What's the matter?" Sumo asked. The inn waiter felt that Sumo's tone was a bit cold, and not easy to approach, so he hurriedly said, "Senior, you're here to catch the tide, right?" "Yes." Sumo nodded. His face still did not have much of an expression. The inn waiter felt a bit cold standing in front of Sumo. "Since Senior is here to catch the tide, I'll make it short. I'll make a long story short. I'm here to help some of the tide catchers distribute the scrolls. The Ancient Coin secret realm is full of danger. If everyone can go in together, they can take care of each other. This is the scroll. If you're interested, you can take a look. If you don't, just pretend I never came." After saying that, the inn waiter took out a sheepskin scroll from his robe and handed one to Sumo. Sumo took it and lightly said, "Got it." The inn waiter smiled awkwardly, then turned around and went to another room. Sumo closed the door and opened the scroll in her hand. In fact, the so-called scroll was similar to a leaflet. Many of the tide catchers were individual cultivators who did not belong to any sections. Some of these cultivators, for safety's sake, spontaneously formed groups and looked after each other in the Ancient Coin secret realm. Cultivators who formed groups like this had as many as 30 to 50 people, and as few as 3 to 5 people, each with their own name and requirements. Northern Qianku, Cloud Central Alliance, Fate Puller. Sumo glanced at the names, requirements, and gathering places of the various groups on the sheepskin scroll, and couldn't help but sneer. He was not too interested in these things. After recovering part of his memory, Sumo liked to be alone even more. However, at this time, the name of an organization attracted his attention. 3 Realms Galaxy. Founder, Song Shing. Requirements: None. Gathering place: Old Town Dilapidated Temple. Sumo slightly raised an eyebrow. Chapter 407. 3 Realms Galaxy. Sumo stared at the 4 words on the parchment and was slightly shocked. 3 Realms? Galaxy? Could this name be a coincidence? But there wouldn't be that many coincidences in the world. Behind all coincidences, there must be a cause and effect. Sumo had always believed this. Now, he believed it even more. There must be a meaning behind the name 3 Realms Galaxy. However, this meaning might only be understood by those from the 3 realms. At this thought, Sumo pushed the door open. Senior. The waiter who had just delivered the parchment to the other rooms ran into Sumo. "There's a rundown temple in this town?" Sumo didn't waste any time. Leave the inn, head east, 3 miles. The waiter answered. Sumo nodded and left the inn. Senior, take care. The waiter said from behind Sumo. The waiter felt that this cultivator in black was a bit gloomy, but he didn't dare to offend him. Sumo didn't care about what he thought. She left the inn and headed east. The town of ancient money wasn't small, but the inn Sumo stayed in was considered remote. 3 miles to the east, the land became more deserted. It wasn't exactly deserted, but it was very rundown. However, the waiter of the inn was right. Sumo saw an old temple. The temple looked quite old. It had been in disrepair for many years and was in ruins. However, that rundown temple reminded Sumo of the rundown temple outside Peach Blossom Town in this life. Unfortunately, there was no group of beggars outside the dilapidated temple in the town of Ancient Coin, nor was there any old profound. However, there was a middle-aged cultivator with disheveled hair sitting on the steps of the temple. Late-stage deity's tribulation. The middle-aged cultivator was also wearing a black robe, but it was somewhat stained. His head was lowered, as if he was dozing off. The cultivator in black gave off a desolate and dispirited feeling. As Sumo approached, the cultivator in black slowly raised his head. It was a rather ugly face. Among cultivators, there weren't many who looked like this. Sumo raised her eyebrows slightly. He did not recognize that cultivator. Be it the memories of the 3 realms or Izong, there was no such person. Senior. Sumo cupped her hands towards the black-robed cultivator. At this moment, he was still holding the sheepskin scroll in his hand. The black-robed middle-aged cultivator looked at Sumo, but his expression didn't change much. You saw the sheepskin scroll? Yes. Sumo said. Are you Senior Kanshing? You want to establish the 3 realms galaxy and then prepare to enter the secret realm together, right? The middle-aged cultivator in black nodded. My name is Yi Kanshing. I am Sumo. Sumo cupped his hands again. After all, it seemed that Yi Sanshing's cultivation was above his. He was only at the early stage of the soul transformation realm. He should have his own polite attitude. Why? Join my 3 realms galaxy? Why not choose another team? Yi Kanshing asked. Because there are no requirements here. Sumo smiled faintly. Junior is at the early stage of the soul transformation realm, the lowest realm to enter the secret realm. I belong to the category of loose cultivators that no one is willing to recruit. Oh? Ha! When Yi Kanshing heard this, he paused for a moment and then laughed bitterly. That makes sense. But I'm afraid you're not the person I'm looking for. Huh! Sumo pretended to be surprised. Senior, who are you looking for? Then does Junior still have the qualifications to enter the secret realm with Senior? I'm looking for someone who belongs to the 3 realms galaxy. Yi Sanshing's eyes were full of vicissitudes. Are you? Sumo looked a little embarrassed. Junior doesn't know what Senior is talking about? Hee. Yi Kanshing nodded and sighed. It's fine. Anyway, I've been waiting here for half a month, and no one has come. So I'll count you in. We can take care of each other. Thank you, Senior. Sumo hurriedly thanked him. May I know where Senior will be staying? Where will I be staying? Yi Kanshing shook his head. I've been hanging around in this rundown temple. 6 days later, when the tide starts at noon, you just have to get here in advance. Otherwise, after the tide starts and the surrounding space changes, I'm afraid we won't be able to meet again. Junior understands. Sumo saw that Yi Kanshing was not a talkative person, so she wanted to take her leave and come back on the day of the tide. However, at this moment, from the west, in the direction from which Sumo came, another cultivator came. Deity Tribulation Great Circle. Moreover, it was a female cultivator. The female cultivator wore a light blue long dress, but her figure was quite good, and her curves were extremely beautiful. However, her face was covered by a blue veil, covered by a spell. Whether it was Sumo or Yi Kanshing, neither could see the female cultivator's appearance. Only a pair of beautiful eyes could be seen, clear as water, but there was a hint of sadness in the depths of them. "Which one of you is Kanshing?" The blue-clothed woman's voice was gentle and pleasing to the ear. "I am." Yi Kanshing was the first to answer. "Greetings, Your Excellency." The blue-clothed woman looked at Yi Kanshing, and then at Sumo. "Are you both from the Three Realms?" Sumo shook her head, but Yi Sanshing's eyes lit up. "Young lady, are you from the Three Realms?" Yi Kanshing slowly stood up. "The name Three Realms Galaxy didn't come out of nowhere, right?" Not only did the blue-clothed woman not answer Yi Sanshing's question, but she also asked another question. "Of course." Yi Kanshing looked at the blue-clothed woman and said, "In front of me is the Three Realms, and behind me is the galaxy. I'm from the Shattered Galaxy. Young lady, do you want to join us?" "The Shattered Galaxy," the blue-clothed woman sighed. "In the boundless universe, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack. However, the Three Realms are inextinguishable. Since I'm here, I'll naturally join you. I'm Yi Kanshing." "Yi Kanshing?" The blue-clothed woman frowned. "I don't know you." Sumo had been standing quietly by the side, not saying a word. At that moment, she realized that the blue-clothed woman and Yi Kanshing were both awakened reincarnators of the Three Realms. Two former eternal realms? Sumo was a little shocked. "Young lady, what's your name?" Yi Kanshing asked. "Yuwuji," the blue-clothed woman said. "Yuwuji?" Yi Kanshing thought for a moment. "Which you?" Yi Sanshing's question made Sumo's heart skip a beat. He looked at the blue-clothed woman and couldn't help but narrow his eyes. That was because this name reminded him of someone. "Gon Go Yu," the blue-clothed woman replied. "Do you know me?" Yi Kanshing shook his head, then smiled bitterly. There was the Three Realms before and the Milky Way behind. What's the point of knowing each other in our past lives and this life? Back then, the Holy Father Amu broke the karma, and everything started anew. Except for the unextinguished obsession in my heart, the other cultivators of the Three Realms are all old friends. "Ha!" Yuwuji laughed coldly. "Everyone is like that. The karma of others has been severed, but the obsession in our own matters is unextinguished. I don't believe that the Holy Father Amu really broke everything. Otherwise, the Three Realms should live forever." "Huh!" Yi Kanshing was a little embarrassed. Because Yuwuji was right. "I'll see you at noon on the day of the opening tide." Yuwuji didn't say anything more. He just looked at Sumo and frowned. She turned around and left. Sumo bowed to Yi Kanshing, then turned around and left. Yi Kanshing looked at their backs and smiled bitterly. But in his heart, he said, "It's samsara and everyone is hiding." Chapter 408. Sumo returned to the inn. It could be said that Sumo had gained a lot from this trip. Sumo didn't expect that there would be two reincarnators of the Three Realms. The probability of such a thing happening was too low. If she counted herself, there would be three of them. Perhaps this meant that the Netherworld realm was a special place. Sumo thought of the young man in white clothes, Li Beihan. His surname was Li and his name was Beihan. Moreover, he gave her a lotus-shaped jade pendant. The corner of Sumo's mouth slightly rose. She had some speculations about the identity of that young man. However, did Li Beihan know who she was? If he did, would he still give her that life-saving pendant? Sumo didn't know the answer. Yi Kanshing, Yuwuji, Li Beihan. The Netherworld realm could be considered a gathering of experts. Sumo could only wait and see. After all, Sumo didn't know what would happen after the tide started. In the blink of an eye, another 3 days passed. There were only 2 more days until the tide started. During these 3 days, everything was calm. However, the number of cultivators in the ancient town kept increasing. Some cultivators in the undead realm also appeared. However, Sumo just stayed in the inn and didn't go out. That night, Sumo was meditating in the inn. The little white pig was lying on a soft praying mat next to him, sleeping soundly. One man and one beast, it was very peaceful. However, at midnight, Sumo suddenly opened his eyes. The little white pig also stopped snoring and became alert. Whoosh, a black light came through the window lattice and headed straight for the space between Sumo's eyebrows. Humph! Before Sumo could do anything, the little white pig directly flew up. The little guy opened his mouth and directly caught the black light in his mouth. It was a black steel needle. This kind of assassination method could only be considered low-level. Suemo sneered and left the room in a flash. The little white pig followed closely behind. The town of ancient money didn't have a true night. The netherworld realm was a space at the bottom of the sea. At this time, it was midnight, but there were only relatively few pedestrians, and the sky was slightly dark. Sumo stood in the void and spread out her divine scent. The little white pig had a wingspan of 7 to 8 feet. The silver wings emitted a faint silver light, extremely dazzling. That pair of fangs was even more terrifying. Now, the little white pig's combat power had increased by a whole new level. Even if it faced an undying cultivator, it could still contend with him. Far away, a gray shadow disappeared in an instant. However, he had already been locked by Sumo's divine sense. The corner of Sumo's mouth curled up coldly. Humph! The little white pig looked at the gray shadow and snorted. Because it remembered that smell. Back then, Sumo had purposely let it sniff. I didn't look for you, but you still dared to look for me. It's time to settle the score for what happened back then. Sumo sneered. So what if you lured me out? Today I'll fulfill your wish. After saying this much, Sumo's body moved, heading straight for the gray-robed cultivator. The little white pig spread its wings, and its speed seemed to be even faster. Flying pig. This was the first time the little guy had the opportunity to show off its strength after becoming stronger. It was as fast as lightning. However, the speed of the gray-robed cultivator wasn't slow, either. In the blink of an eye, they had arrived several hundred kilometers away from the town of ancient money. This was the border between the Qian Palace tribe and the Dui Palace tribe. There were many mountains, rising and falling continuously. In addition, the mountains here were all black. From afar, it looked like numerous black dragons were lying on the ground. This was indeed a good place to kill someone. The gray-robed cultivator seemed to have slowed down on purpose, turning around and stopping in the middle of a valley. Several dozen zhang away, Sumo and the little white pig also stopped. The gray-robed ghost mask. That was actually Qing Hun from the Ink Soul Tower, who had killed 3 undead. At this moment, Qing Hun said coldly to Sumo, "You're really fast. The dragon-elephant soul-devouring beast is a mutated species from the Pure Land. It seems like you've been to the Pure Land continent or come from there." Hee hee. Sumo sneered. That day you killed people to silence them. Those 3 undead were also attracted by you, right? Now, you actually dare to come and kill me? Do you really think I'm a fish on the chopping block? I'm a businessman. If someone offers a price, I'll kill them. An undead cultivator from the sinless lineage can be exchanged for at least 3,000 supreme-grade spirit stones in the Netherworld City. Moreover, you're a fat sheep. Qing Hun sneered. How can I let go of such a business opportunity? You're an assassin from the Ink Soul Tower. Sumo asked. He remembered Li Beihan's words. Qing Hun's tone didn't sound too surprised. You got the news very quickly. But what surprised me even more was that you actually changed your face. If there wasn't a tracking spirit beast, I really wouldn't have been able to find you. At this moment, 4 white-furred rat-like spirit beasts appeared around Qing Hun. They should be the tracking spirit beasts he mentioned. Sumo, are you really a member of the sinless lineage? And do you know the so-called Linghu He Huan? Qing Hun asked slowly. It seemed that he had been following Sumo these days, because he already knew Sumo's name. Sumo sneered again. Now, that's not important anymore. Since your Ink Soul Tower wants to kill me for business, then there's no need to ask any more questions. And what? Ching Hun asked. And now, it's not a matter of you wanting to kill me, but me wanting to destroy the entire Ink Soul Tower. Sumo's eyes flashed with hostility. At the same time, he made his move. In the past, Sumo couldn't be considered as a real decisive killer, but he always had a trace of compromise in his heart. After all, it wasn't easy for every cultivator to cultivate. However, the current Sumo was different. Xiao Luo and Murong Huang had seen too many life and death situations. The great Murong dynasty had millions of ordinary people, but Murong Huang could abandon them. What's more, there was someone who wanted to kill him now. All living beings were once ants, so how could a killer be a threat? Sumo's movement was extremely fast, and a black light went straight to Ching Hun in gray. The Ink Soul Tower not only trained cultivators, but also killers. Although Ching Hun was only at the early stage of undying, his fighting style was extremely strange. Today, if it wasn't for luring Sumo here, he wouldn't have fought with Sumo head-on. Ching Hun's movement technique was also very fast. That way, it would be convenient for assassination or escape. However, Sumo's speed exceeded his expectations. Sumo might be at the middle stage of undying, and he had already prepared for this. However, Sumo's speed was comparable to the late stage of undying, and even close to the peak stage. As soon as the black shadow moved, Ching Hun felt an extremely strong sense of oppression. They were both in the undying realm, so there shouldn't be any oppression between them, but Ching Hun's feeling was like oppression. Ching Hun was shocked. He didn't have this feeling when he was in Mount Xianwang. In just over 20 days, Sumo's body seemed to have undergone an indescribable change. For Ching Hun, it was an extremely terrifying change. Ching Hun's figure quickly retreated, and at the same time, he had already stretched out his long sword. Sumo didn't use the broken bamboo pole, but directly grabbed Ching Hun's head with one hand. The rootless fingers were slightly bent, slender and white. The fingertips were surrounded by a faint black gas. That was the technique of the Three Realms' heaven-shattering ancient scroll. Of course, Ching Hun had never seen it before. He wanted to use the immortal sword to force Sumo back. However, he didn't see what was going on at all. Sumo's 5 fingers actually broke through his immortal sword. At the same time, he saw a strange black light flickering in Sumo's eyes. Ching Hun's sea of consciousness slightly stagnated. Mind-manipulating technique. Puff, in a flash, Sumo's 5 fingers directly penetrated Ching Hun's head. Red and white brain matter instantly gushed out. Chapter 409. Early Undead, killed in one move. At the moment of his death, Ching Hun couldn't believe it was true. In theory, an early undead of Ink Spirit Pavilion could fight against a middle undead. In a head-on confrontation, although the winning rate was extremely low, it wouldn't result in instant death. Ching Hun knew that Sumo wasn't ordinary, so he didn't intend to really fight against Sumo. However, he still underestimated Sumo's ability. One move. Just one move. When his 5 fingers penetrated Ching Hun's head, Sumo heard the sound of his skull cracking and saw the scene of his brain gushing out. At that moment, there was an inexplicable sense of excitement in Sumo's heart. There was a smile hanging on the corner of his mouth. That smile was a bit cruel. Ink Spirit Pavilion had already been blacklisted in Sumo's heart. And at the moment when Sumo killed Ching Hun, the atmosphere in the entire valley had changed. Boom! Ching Hun's body suddenly exploded. Sumo's reaction was extremely fast. His figure retreated like lightning, and at the same time, his body had already lit up with a mysterious light. Devil energy protection. In fact, there was no devil energy in Sumo's body now, only an endless stream of undying chi. However, his technique was interlinked, and he instantly put up a defense. Even so, Sumo's black robe was splashed with a lot of brain. Sumo raised his eyebrows. Seal! It was unknown who shouted in the valley. A faint gray fog suddenly spread throughout the entire valley. A barrier spell. This valley had already been covered with a spell, and Ching Hun could only be regarded as an abandoned chess piece. When he lured Sumo here, his mission and life basically ended at the same time. Boom, crack, two boulders in front and behind Sumo suddenly exploded. It was an undead talisman. Two masses of undead force turned into a long blade and slashed down. Sumo's expression didn't change. The broken bamboo pole was already in his hand. He stood still and swung it left and right. Boom, pa! The two masses of undead force dissipated. At the same time, the mountains on both sides of the valley began to move. It was as if two doors were about to merge, and Sumo was sandwiched in the middle, and the speed was extremely fast. A strong wind blew, sending sand and gravel flying. The void suddenly lit up with starlight. Tens of thousands of steel needles fell like a meteor shower. All of the needles were imbued with the power of undying. On the ground, clusters of runes spread out like a whirlpool of water. Not only was there a spirit formation in the entire valley, but there was also a killing formation within the spirit formation. This time, for the sake of this transaction, the Ink Soul Tower could be considered to have put in a lot of capital. An inescapable net. Sumo frowned, not because of the situation, but because of the rising killing intent in her heart. Currently, this killing array could not kill Sumo at all. For Sumo, who had recovered part of her memory, this was really a small game. When he came out to chase after grey-robed Ching Hun, he knew that there was a trap here. Sumo patted her storage pouch and the tattered cloth pouch flew out. He opened the mouth of the pouch and saw that it was empty inside, as if it contained a whole world. Collect! Sumo shouted softly. Those steel needles with the power of undying instantly gathered and fell directly into the tattered cloth pouch. Silently, like snow falling into the long river. The tattered cloth pouch could collect anything. Needles like these were nothing to him. As for the two oncoming mountains, Sumo did not even look at them, she simply ignored them. However, Sumo directly inserted the tattered bamboo pole into the ground. At the same time, he formed a seal with his hand. In an instant, the runes on the ground suddenly exploded. The tattered bamboo pole, like a drill, went straight into the ground. Boom, crack, the earth rolled, as if there was a dragon moving. Two grey-robed cultivators directly rushed out of the ground. Two cultivators, one male and one female. One of the male cultivator's arms had been directly pierced by the tattered bamboo pole. However, they still held their immortal swords and went straight to Sumo. Sumo's strength was definitely beyond the expectations of the Ink Soul Tower. With the early stage of undying as the guide, and the deep valley boundary as the array. Then, there were also two middle-stage undying killers lurking underground. These two middle-stage undying killers were definitely the elite forces of the Ink Soul Tower. Usually, they would not go on a mission at the same time. One of them was the senior sister who once traveled with Ching Hun. In the view of the Ink Soul Tower, they had made full preparations. However, all of this was either seen through by Sumo or seen through by him. The two moving mountains were simply an illusion. The real killing intent was hidden underground. The biggest killing move was the two middle-stage undying killers. They were at the same level as Sumo. Using two to kill one, supplemented by a killing array, the Ink Soul Tower should have succeeded. However, Sumo could kill an undying in the Divine Tribulation period. Let alone now? Just at the moment when the two cultivators flew out, a purple-robed female cultivator was already standing beside Sumo. Ghost Shadow. A puppet of the great perfection of the undead realm. At present, this was already an ordinary puppet in Sumo's storage bag. However, she was more than enough to deal with the Ink Soul killers. Female cultivator against female cultivator. Ghost Shadow's body was really like a ghost shadow. When the gray-robed female cultivator went straight to Sumo, Ghost Shadow directly greeted her. The female cultivator had a sword, but Ghost Shadow did not use her sword at all. Her purple robe, her flesh, were all weapons. Whoosh, with a flick of her purple long sleeve, an endless strong wind blew. The undead chi filled the void. Ghost Shadow was not an ordinary puppet. Her spiritual wisdom was even higher than Sumo's other 3 purple-robed puppets. Therefore, her fighting style was more reasonable and more direct. The purple long sleeve swept towards the immortal sword. Ghost Shadow's other hand directly grabbed the immortal heart of the gray-robed female cultivator. Ghost Shadow's white jade hand was flawless, almost no different from a real female cultivator's. However, her hand was an undead divine weapon. In fact, Ghastly Shadow had only used extremely simple moves. However, the most important thing was the speed. Everything happened in a flash, in the blink of an eye. It could even be said to happen at the same time. The gray-robed female cultivator's sword seemed to be sent into Ghost Shadow's long sleeve. Her body seemed to be colliding with Ghost Shadow's claws. "Undead puppet!" the gray-robed female cultivator exclaimed. However, it was already too late. Just as she was about to abandon her sword and retreat, Ghost Shadow's claws had already arrived. Puff! Ghost Shadow's claws pierced through the gray-robed female cultivator's heart. In an instant, blood gushed out, staining her black robe with golden blood. The gray-robed female cultivator groaned. However, Ghost Shadow's hand slightly shook. Because there was no immortal heart in that position. That gray-robed female cultivator had a special life-saving method. And at this moment, the gray-robed female cultivator suddenly retreated. Disregarding the bloody hole in her immortal heart, she desperately summoned a talisman. Boom! The talisman exploded, releasing a grayish-yellow fog. Ghost Shadow rushed into the fog, but that gray-robed female cultivator had already disappeared without a trace. At the same time, Sumo's broken bamboo pole had already pierced the head of another male cultivator. 2 undead middle-stage cultivators, in the blink of an eye, one died and the other fled. Squeak, squeak, squeak. The spirit beasts in the air seemed to be panicking and were not choosing their path carefully. They were special spirit beasts that could only be used for tracking. They didn't have much combat power. Humph, humph. The little white pig hadn't had a chance to display its strength. So when it saw that white mouse-like spirit beast, how could it be polite? Roar! With a flap of its silver wings, the little white pig turned in the void and directly swallowed the 4 spirit beasts. Then, it stuck out its tongue and licked its lip. It seemed that the taste of those spirit beasts wasn't bad. Whoosh, crack! At this time, the entire barrier collapsed. The mountain valley returned to its original appearance. Sumo gently waved her hand, dusting off the stains on her body, and said to herself, "Ink Spirit Pavilion, we still have a lot of time. Wait until I come back, we will definitely meet again." Finished speaking, Sumo waved her hand and took Ghost Shadow away, bringing the little white pig straight to Ancient Coin Town. Chapter 410. They came and went in a hurry. When Sumo returned to the town of Ancient Money, it had not even been 15 minutes. Such a battle within the boundary did not attract the attention of any cultivators in the town of Ancient Money. However, in the mountain where Sumo was fighting, an old man in white gradually appeared. It was White Camel, who was ordered by Li Beihan to secretly follow Sumo. He had seen everything that had happened just now. Sumo's ruthlessness was more or less out of his expectations. He did not expect the assassins of the Ink Spirit Pavilion to be so weak in front of Sumo. "Ha! Young master, it seems that I don't need to do anything," White Camel muttered to himself, then slowly walked towards the town of Ancient Money. White Camel was like an ordinary cultivator. He maintained his cultivation at the early stage of the deity tribulation. After Sumo returned to the inn, he did not speak for the whole night. He estimated that the Ink Spirit Pavilion would stop for a period of time. Once the tide receded 9 months later, he would naturally settle the score with the Ink Spirit Pavilion without the Ink Spirit Pavilion looking for him. The next day was the day of the tide opening. Sumo packed everything and went to the rundown temple according to the original agreement. There was still more than 2 hours before the tide opening. However, the entire town of Ancient Money was extremely quiet. At that moment, the ancient town seemed to have stopped moving. On the long street, there were already no sounds of hawking, and all the shops were in a state of closure. There were occasionally cultivators walking on the street, but they all walked forward silently. Everyone had a tacit understanding, and they were all quietly waiting for the tide of the Earth Sea. The tide opening was a grand occasion for the 9 underworlds. However, this was not a festival, but an opportunity and a challenge. There were indeed many opportunities in the Ancient Money secret realm, but there were always a large number of cultivators who never returned. Therefore, before the tide came, the cultivators were nervous and excited, expectant and apprehensive. Especially those cultivators who rushed the tide for the first time, because although they had done a lot of homework, they had not truly experienced it. Sumo's mood was rather calm. After all, he was a person who had experienced too many life and death situations. After recovering those memories, his entire person had undergone a qualitative change and improvement. 3 miles of road, Sumo walked for 15 minutes. He walked very slowly. Yi Kanshing sat casually on the steps outside the rundown temple. He was still wearing the same black robe with stains on it. His long hair, which hung loosely over his shoulders, did not seem clean either. Shabby and sloppy. Sumo understood that everyone in the 3 realms must have their own stories, just like him. However, his temperament was the exact opposite of Yi Sanqing's. His black robe had to be spotless. The fact that Qing Hun's brains were on his body made him raise his eyebrows. At the same time, Sumo's eyes could be filled with vicissitudes of life, ruthlessness, and even melancholy, but she would never be dispirited or give up. Murong and Xiao Luo were not that kind of people. Sumo naturally wanted to be the king. Their souls belonged to the never-ending struggle, never giving up, never retreating. It was better to suffer eternal damnation than to seek freedom from the saints. That was when Muron's Tao, as well as Xiao Luo's Tao. Reincarnation after reincarnation, only to fight again. Therefore, although Sumo did not know Yi Sanqing's story, she could understand Yi Kanshing, but she would not abandon herself like Yi Kanshing. When Yi Kanshing saw Sumo, he nodded slightly and did not say anything. Sumo nodded and returned the greeting, but did not say anything. He found a clean spot and sat cross-legged. There was still some time before the tide began. They only needed to wait quietly. After a while, a blue figure appeared in the void. Yu Wuji's graceful figure landed in front of the rundown temple. That temperament was not something an ordinary person could compare to. Sumo sighed in her heart, but did not say anything. This woman should be considered his former enemy. Yu Wuji did not say anything either. Like Sumo, he found a place to meditate. The 3 reincarnators of the 3 realms, each with their own thoughts, did not speak to each other. The 3 of them were only 30 feet away from each other, forming a triangle. After a while, Yi Kanshing finally spoke. "Gentlemen, I entered the ancient coin pocket realm 300 years ago. It has 3 layers. Back then, I was only in the outer 3rd layer and did not dare to go in. This time, I want to enter the 2nd layer. What do you think?" Sumo said, "Senior, since you are the one who organized the 3 realms galaxy, I will listen to you. However, I hope you can take care of me at the critical moment." "Ha!" Yi Kanshing smiled bitterly. "The ancient coin realm is ever-changing. It can change the world with a single step. Since we are allies, we must take care of each other. However, if we encounter an extremely powerful enemy, we cannot even protect ourselves. Then, we can only seek our own survival to avoid being wiped out." "Of course." Sumo nodded. "How do we split the treasures?" Yu Wuji asked. Yuwuji shook his head and smiled. It seems that this is your first time. You should know that some of the treasures in the realm need to be fated to recognize their owners. They belong to whoever can take them. The rest of the things that couldn't be recognized as masters were all ordinary objects. I only need 30%. Miss, you are a perfected deity tribulation cultivator. How about 50%? Little brother, you have the lowest cultivation, so you should get 20%. Do you have any objections? Yuwuji looked at Sumo. No problem. Sumo nodded. He entered the ancient coin realm mainly to search for fated opportunities. Since Yi Kanshing said so, he naturally had no objections. Alright. Yuwuji nodded. She paused, then looked at Yi Kanshing and Sumo. She said slowly, the Three Realms galaxy has a different meaning. Because the galaxy has been shattered, we are all foreigners. If there is any danger in the ancient coin realm, I will do my best. Please don't hold back. I hope we can all come out alive. Yuwuji emphasized. Hearing Yuwuji's words, Yi Sanqing's expression froze. A light flashed in his eyes. That light didn't match his desolate aura. That was the former Yi Kanshing. The descendants of the galaxy are all comrades. Yi Sanqing's words were powerful. Sumo understood. Although he denied his identity as a reincarnator of the Three Realms. But both Yi Kanshing and Yuwuji saw him as a reincarnator of the Three Realms. They had a tacit understanding, but didn't point it out. For various reasons, they were hiding. They had formed a temporary team, so there was no real contract between them. This was a taboo for those who formed an alliance. The descendants of the galaxy were all comrades. But these words were enough to penetrate the heart of the reincarnation of the Three Realms. The descendants of the galaxy are all comrades. The veil on Yuwuji's face rippled. His eyes brightened. Yi Kanshing well said. The galaxy is where the dreaming soul is. And so, Yuwuji raised his right hand and waved it in the air. A warm smile appeared on Yi Sanqing's face. At the same time, he raised his right hand. Sumo sighed. If Yuwuji could do this, what about him? The Three Realms were destroyed. Many karmic ties were gone. But they were all from the Three Realms. In Izong, they were all wanderers. Clap, Sumo raised her hand. The three high-fived and formed an alliance. This time, Sumo tacitly admitted that she was also from the Three Realms. Because in the Three Realms, such an alliance meant swearing on the Tao heart that they would not betray each other. Ha 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 ha, Yi Sanqing's long hair fluttered. He laughed. Izong, one day you will return the Three Realms and restore the galaxy. Calm. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 411. Hide. One day you will return the Three Realms, return the galaxy. Yi Sanqing's words shook Sumo's soul. Because he still couldn't understand everything. What did that mean? That's right. Return my love, restore my brilliant life. Yuwuji's blue dress fluttered. Although Sumo could not understand their words, but the love and pain they felt, Sumo could feel it. The story of the Three Realms, Sumo must remember it all, must understand it all. That black fragment allowed Sumo to recover part of her memory, but Sumo did not know what it was. Whoosh, at this moment, a gust of wind blew in the void. The originally slightly bright void gradually darkened. Layers of thick clouds appeared in the sky above the town of Ancient Money. Actually, the sky of the 9 underworlds was the bottom of the Bitter Wheel Sea. At this moment, huge vortexes appeared one after another in the void. The entire sky was spinning. The so-called whirlpools were just like this. The tide is coming. Yi Kanshing said, prepare the water trap talismans. Cultivators above the soul transformation realm could already avoid ordinary fire and water. But the water of the Bitter Wheel Sea was not ordinary. Especially the tide water, it actually contained the power of the undying realm. Without the water trap talismans, one could only use one's own strength to resist. Unless one had an endless supply of spiritual energy, one would definitely be swallowed by the tide. From this point of view, Sumo really did not need the water trap talismans. But there was an easy way, who would use spiritual energy to resist the tide. Therefore, the water trap talisman was a must-have for controlling the tide. It could protect the cultivator in a ball of light, until everything in the mystic realm stabilized. After the tide, the undying realm would naturally disappear. That was only the first stage of the tide. Whoosh, looking at the town of ancient money, countless water trap talismans lit up at the same time. At this moment, if one stood in the void and looked down at the town of ancient money and its surroundings, one would see that this area looked like thousands of stars falling to the ground, endless brilliance shooting into the sky. Sumo Yi Kanshing and Yu Wuji also took out their water trap talismans. The three of them were still in a triangular formation, but their water trap talismans were connected to each other to prevent them from being separated by the tide. Boom boom! Immediately, Sumo felt the earth begin to shake. But the vibrations were not irregular, but were rhythmically slow and gentle. At that moment it was as if the earth was slowly opening a door, preparing to welcome the tide. The wind blew and the earth trembled. Almost all the people in the netherworld realm who would come whenever there was a tide were already used to it. This was the prelude to the beginning of the season. They prepared everything calmly and even had smiles on their faces. When the tide came, opportunities would also come. At this moment, the entire sky continued to darken. Black clouds pressed down on the city, threatening to destroy it. Normal tides came from the surrounding seas. However, the town of ancient money wasn't near the sea. The tide of the town of ancient money came from the sky. At that moment, Sumo was really a little surprised. "Do you not see the tides coming from the heavens?" "The tides are coming," Yi Kanshing said. Whoosh, whoosh, the rain poured down like a tide. All the whirlpools in the sky seemed to have opened the gates of heaven. Endless seawater poured down from the sky. At this time, cultivators below the soul transformation realm wouldn't be able to withstand such an impact. Soul transformation realm, deity tribulation realm, and even undying realm cultivators had to rely on the water trap talismans to stay standing. It was truly a miraculous sight. The sky was collapsing, and the Milky Way was overturned. The entire area within a radius of several hundred kilometers of the town of ancient money was flooded by the sea. However, it seemed as if it was being controlled by some mysterious power. The tide was only within a radius of several hundred kilometers, and didn't spread outwards. It rushed downwards and then circled back up. The entire town of ancient money was turning into a world of water. From a distance, everything around the town of ancient money had disappeared. A pillar of water with a circumference of several hundred kilometers stood between the heavens and the earth. It was the secret realm of the ancient money that the cultivators of the netherworld were talking about. The tide had begun. It was gradually forming, and it would only disappear in 9 months from today. During this time, all the cultivators of the netherworld could come and go as they pleased. However, very few cultivators would come and go. Most of the cultivators would wait for the tide to recede before coming out, or they wouldn't enter again after coming out. Of course, there were also cultivators who disappeared forever. At this time, Sumo was inside the light ball of the water trap talisman, watching as the tide fell, and everything around her gradually changed. The tide drowned everything, and also changed everything. As far as Sumo could see, the first thing to disappear was the dilapidated temple behind them. Sumo, Yi Kanshing, and Yu Wuji could see each other. Yi Sanqing's expression was the calmest. After all, he had experienced it once. In Yu Wuji's beautiful eyes there was also shock. She was the same as Sumo. She didn't expect the tide of the netherworld to be so shocking. The dilapidated temple disappeared, and the other buildings of the ancient town in the distance also disappeared. Gradually, the surging tide seemed to fade bit by bit. The thinning was very strange. The tide dispersed in all directions, but it filtered this world. The town of ancient money had completely disappeared. Everything within a radius of several kilometers had also disappeared. The distance between Sumo, Yi Kanxing, and Yuwuji didn't change, but they felt like they were in another spacetime. About half an hour later, the arcane realm has stabilized. Yi Kanxing transmitted his voice. Following Yi Sanqing's transmission, the water trap talisman in front of the three of them started to lose its effect. This meant that the tide had passed, and the undying energy in the arcane realm had dissipated. At this time, Sumo raised her head to look at the void. There seemed to be endless clouds. In this arcane realm, there was no difference between heaven and earth, day and night. Everything was gray, which reminded Sumo of the desolate soul arcane realm in the three realms. The ancient money arcane realm was definitely a special spacetime. Remember where we are now. If we want to leave the ancient money arcane realm in advance, we need to return here and use the rising sea talisman, Yi Kanxing said. Yes. Sumo and Yuwuji nodded. They looked left and right. There was a landmark here. In the east, less than 300 feet away, there was a withered tree. And under the ancient tree there was an old well. Unfortunately, it was a withered well. Such an existence made people feel very strange. In the ancient money arcane realm, besides the 9 Serenities cultivators, are there others? Sumo asked. I'm not sure. Yi Kanxing naturally saw the old well. Back then, I only moved around the periphery. The people I met were all 9 Serenities cultivators. I've never seen anyone from the arcane realm. But I feel that there might be cultivators from this spacetime in this arcane realm. Because in a while, we will find many remnants. At least there was someone in this spacetime, Yi Kanxing said with certainty. Neither Sumo nor Yuwuji said anything. Sumo didn't know what Yuwuji was thinking. But at this moment, Sumo recalled Li Beihan's words, wondering if something was happening to Tianfu City. At the same time, he wondered if he could return to the Soul Altar abode. Let's go. We'll go straight to the passage to the second secret realm, Yi Kanxing said. They all had the ancient money arcane map, so it was relatively easy. Sumo and Yuwuji followed Yi Kanxing, riding the wind. There was still some way to go to the second secret realm. Just after they left, there were ripples on the ground. The white-robed old camel had appeared in the ancient money arcane realm alone. He stooped and glanced at the ancient tree and well. Then, he gently sighed and shook his head. 8. Chapter 412. The ancient coin mystic realm was deep and boundless. How big it was, perhaps no one in 9 Nether could say for sure. The map in the hands of Sumo and the other 2 was drawn with ancient coin town as the starting point. According to the map, they were already 1,000 miles away from ancient coin town. If calculated from ancient coin town, the map in their hands indicated a depth of about 7,000 to 8,000 miles. But that was only the entire third and second stage of the realm. There were no markings on the map for the first stage of the realm further in. The first stage of the ancient coin realm was an area that only undying late and undying great perfection cultivators could set foot in. But those 9 Nether cultivators who had entered the first stage of the realm were all kept a secret. So what was inside the first stage of the ancient coin realm had always been a mystery. It was Sumo's first time entering the ancient coin mystic realm, and she didn't expect to enter the first stage of the realm. After all, she didn't know much about this place. What she hoped was to obtain an opportunity to advance. At this moment, she and Yuwuji followed behind Yi Kanxing, heading straight for the boundary between the third and second stage of the realm. Along the way, they didn't meet with any trouble. It was strangely calm. This made Yi Kanxing a little surprised. Even Sumo and Yuwuji felt that this was different from what they heard. They had heard that in the ancient coin mystic realm, there were many beasts and spiritual objects. If they were lucky, there would be treasures everywhere. but they didn't see anything valuable. I don't know if our luck is too good or bad. Yi Kanshing smiled bitterly. 300 years ago, I entered the ancient coin mystic realm for the first time. Along the way, we met quite a number of spirit transformation realm high-level spiritual beasts, and there were even 9 nether cultivators fighting over the spiritual beasts. But I didn't expect that we didn't meet anything this time. That's a little less. Some of the 3rd stage realm spiritual beasts are more valuable. Yi Kanshing was somewhat regretful. It was Sumo and Yuwuji's first time here, but they knew a little about the situation. But along the way there was nothing. Along the way they passed by a few villages and towns, but they were also completely empty. Could it be that we're behind some big team? Yuwuji asked. They've looted everything along the way. In theory, it's not impossible. Yi Kanshing frowned. But the probability is very small. Don't think that we all came from the ancient coin mystic realm, but we will be separated into different areas of the mystic realm. It should be said that the tide was a magical teleportation, even if there are other monks like us nearby. However, we didn't delay at all. If they harvested everything along the way, wouldn't that be too fast? Sumo and Yuwuji nodded, feeling that what Yi Kanshing said made sense. Putting aside whether it was fast or not, even if it was killing spirit beasts, it was impossible to do it silently. There were no signs of fighting in the area they passed. The places they passed by didn't seem to have been looted. It was more like an organized, planned evacuation. Thus, no one spoke a word along the way. They flew for more than 3,000 miles in the mystic realm. Later on, they saw a few strange beasts, but those beasts' levels weren't high, and they were further away, so they didn't bother to collect them. After all, there should be better existences in the 2nd-tier mystic realm. Between the 3rd-tier mystic realm and the 2nd-tier mystic realm, there was a natural chasm, called the dragon-trapping abyss. It was said that the dragon-trapping abyss was unfathomable, and there were many mystic realm evil dragons, comparable to late-stage deity tribulation great cultivators. Moreover, the dragon-trapping abyss was circular, which meant that it was the only way from the 3rd to the 2nd-tier realm. This dragon-trapping abyss had blocked countless 9 nether cultivators. That year, Yi Kanshing entered the ancient coin mystic realm with his spirit transformation great circle body, but in the end, he didn't dare to cross the dragon-trapping abyss. The dragon-trapping abyss, the spirit transformation great circle, could not cross. This was common knowledge in the ancient coin mystic realm. In other words, unless someone led them, the spirit transformation realm cultivators could only hunt in the 3rd-tier realm. Spirit transformation realm cultivators didn't have the qualifications to enter the 2nd-tier realm. At this moment, Yi Kanshing, Yuwuji, and Sumo were already standing at the edge of the 3rd-tier realm, and in front of them was the dragon-trapping abyss. The layers of fog were unfathomable. The ancient coin's map was marked. Dragon-trapping abyss spanned 100 miles. My divine sense can't detect the other side. This fog in the dragon-trapping abyss can absorb divine sense. Yuwuji said. That's right. Yi Kanshing nodded. The dragon-trapping abyss can not only absorb divine sense, but it also contains illusions. I heard that there was once a deity tribulation cultivator who was trapped in the sea of fog for 1,000 years because his boat was overturned, and he died of exhaustion. So powerful? Sumo raised her eyebrows. Of course. Otherwise, wouldn't everyone be able to enter the 2nd-tier mystic realm? Yi Kanshing said. Just as they were talking, not far away, 7 cultivators directly rushed into the sea of fog. Under their feet there was a small boat. That was the tide-breaking boat that Sumo also bought. Yi Kanshing flipped his hand, and a tide-breaking boat appeared in front of him. You guys are prepared too, right? Yi Kanshing asked. Sumo and Yuwuji nodded, and each took out their tide-breaking boat. However, Sumo had some doubts. Could they cross the dragon-trapping abyss with just the tide-breaking boat? Yi Kanshing saw the doubt in Sumo's eyes. The tide-breaking boat is just a special flying instrument. Actually, to cross the dragon-trapping abyss, one must have the deity tribulation energy to protect himself. Yi Kanshing looked at Yu Wuji and said, "Miss Yu, in a while, the 3 boats will enter one after another. I'll be in front, you behind, and Brother Su in the middle. In this way, we can use the deity tribulation energy to protect him." "Sure." Yu Wuji nodded in agreement. "If we meet an evil dragon on the way, I'll take action. Within 2, you don't have to do anything." Yi Kanshing reminded again, "If we meet a dragon tide, we just need to cross the dragon-trapping abyss, there's no need to fight. At this crucial moment, you don't have to worry about me. I should have the ability to protect myself." Sumo said. That's even better." Yi Kanshing smiled knowingly, because he knew that Sumo was definitely not a simple early-stage soul transformation cultivator. No matter who the reincarnator of the 3 realms was, how could he be ordinary? As the 3 of them spoke, more 9 underworlds cultivators rushed into the mist one after another. It seemed that there were many cultivators who entered the 2nd stage this time. "Get ready," Yi Kanshing said. "Let's go." Sumo and Yu Wuji nodded. Whoosh! The 3 of them boarded the boat at the same time, and then formed a straight line, heading straight for the Sea of Mist. Yi Kanshing was in front and put up a defense. Actually, this defense was enough to cover 3 small boats. And Yu Wuji also put up a defense, and under Yi Kanshing's defense, there was another one. Double protection. Sumo, on the other hand, was happy to be in the middle. The 3 tide-breaking boats were not slow. However, in the thick mist, the visibility was extremely low, and their divine senses could only spread out for a few miles. Therefore, the dragon-trapping abyss was not easy to pass. Yi Kanshing stood at the bow of the boat, completely focused, because in the mist, evil dragons could appear at any time. He only hoped that they would not meet the legendary dragon tide. That would be more troublesome. Roar, whoosh, the 3 of them were thinking about this problem. Suddenly, a loud roar came from the void, and then a bloody mouth came down from the sky, heading straight for the 3 of them. Chapter 413. Evil Dragon. Sumo raised her eyebrows. She felt that the 3 of them had just entered the fog for a few miles, and they were already attacked by an evil dragon. Ancient money evil dragon, a spirit beast in the middle stage of deity tribulation, but its battle power was comparable to a late-stage deity tribulation cultivator. These evil dragons were trapped in the dragon abyss for life and could not leave, so they were extremely violent. On normal days, they even killed and devoured each other. To cross the dragon abyss, one would definitely encounter evil dragons. It was just a matter of how many. If one met 1 or 2 evil dragons in 100 miles, it was considered lucky. If one met more, it was bad luck or even a disaster. What the 9 nether cultivators feared the most was encountering a dragon tide. If more than 10 evil dragons appeared at the same time, it was almost impossible to cross the abyss without a dead cultivator guarding it. From the 3rd stage to the 2nd stage, it was a gamble in itself. Whoosh, roar. At this moment, the evil dragon stretched out its bloody mouth from the fog, about 30 to 40 feet wide, saliva dripping down. The dragon whiskers were like whips, and the dragon teeth were like swords. A fishy smell assailed the nostrils, and the wind was not friendly. Sumo and Yu Wuji did not move, because Yi Kanshing had instructed them just now. 1 or 2 evil dragons did not require them to do anything. Swish, looking again, Yi Kanshing instantly rose into the air, and a long sword appeared in his hand. That long sword was completely black, as if it was dyed with ink. The sword ray was several feet long, just like black lightning. Puff, Yi Kanshing's speed was extremely fast. That immortal sword directly pierced through the evil dragon's lower jaw, and then flicked upwards, directly cutting open the evil dragon's mouth, neat and tidy. Blood splattered. However, the evil dragon only felt pain and did not retreat, instead it was enraged. Roar! The dragon shook its head, and the dragon straightened its body, revealing half of its body in the fog. The gray dragon body shone with light. That evil dragon was actually still rushing forward. Yi Qianxing could not help but raise his eyebrows. Evil creature! Courting death! Saying that, Yi Qianxing patted his storage bag, and a dazzling brilliance flew out. That brilliance formed a circle, like a giant flywheel. Neither Sumo nor Yuwuji saw clearly what kind of magic weapon it was. Chi-Chi, wherever the light passed, it actually cut off the dragon's head. At the same time, 3 small boats sped past. The dragon's corpse fell directly into the abyss. The few moves just now were all in the time it took for a spark to fly off a flint. Yi Qianxing's sword and magic treasures were both swift and decisive. However, the slightest mistake would be extremely dangerous. After all, this was the trapped dragon abyss. No one knew how many evil dragons were hiding in the abyss. Sumo praised inwardly. Yi Qianxing is definitely a top-notch existence among cultivators of the same level. Sumo even doubted whether Yi Qianxing was a late-stage deity tribulation cultivator. Speed up! Yi Qianxing retracted his magic weapon and shouted. The 3 of them activated the tide-breaking boat at the same time and rushed to the other side. That was because killing an evil dragon was likely to attract its companions nearby. Once a dragon tide broke out, it would be troublesome. Yi Qianxing and Yuwuji, 2 deity tribulation cultivators, might not be able to kill their way out. The heavy fog roiled unceasingly. It really was like a wave. Yi Qianxing did not retract his sword. He held his sword and stood in front of the boat, watching everything with vigilance. Fortunately, after rushing for dozens of miles, they did not encounter another evil dragon. In less than 30 miles we will reach the other side, Yuwuji said. Yes. Yi Qianxing also nodded. Victory was in sight. Roar, roar! At this moment, a long roar came from behind them. It was another evil dragon. Yi Qianxing didn't say anything else and flew up again. This time, he did not use his sword, but a flywheel magic weapon. The flywheel magic weapon was indeed powerful. It killed the evil dragon again. However, another roar came from the left. Another evil dragon suddenly pounced. Not good. Yi Qianxing frowned. At this moment, the flywheel magic weapon had not been retracted. Yi Qianxing could only raise his sword. Whoosh! The 3rd evil dragon seemed to know how powerful Yi Qianxing was. It did not directly expose its weak spot to Yi Qianxing. Instead, it stretched out a dragon claw. Evil dragons were deity tribulation level spirit beasts. The dragon claw was like a hook, extremely sharp. Clank! Yi Qianxing's sword clashed with the evil dragon's claw. Sparks flew. The evil dragon was not weak. It swept its claw and tried to push Yi Qianxing's sword away. However, Yi Qianxing did not give it the chance. The flywheel magic weapon had already flown back. Puff! The 3rd evil dragon's head was also cut off. Roar, roar! However, several roars suddenly came from the surrounding fog. Dragon tide! Yi Qianxing's expression suddenly changed. Miss you, let's rush out. Yi Qianxing did not call Sumo. Because a soul transformation cultivator was almost negligible in the dragon trapping abyss. At the crucial moment, it was already fortunate that Sumo did not drag them down. Boom! As soon as Yi Qianxing's voice fell, 4 to 5 evil dragons appeared in the void. In the fog, those evil dragons were like gods, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. The roars outside grew louder and louder. What they were afraid of came. Sumo's group of 3 actually encountered a dragon tide that had not been seen in 100 years. Such a dragon tide provided more opportunities for other cultivators to cross the abyss. Sumo stood on the tide-breaking boat with a calm expression. Because he was in the middle stage of the undead realm. In his tattered cloth bag, there was a soul-burying level puppet. At the crucial moment, as long as he made a move, everything would be solved. However, Sumo did not make a move immediately. Chi-Chi Yi Sansheng's sword danced up and down. His flywheel magic treasure would slay evil dragons wherever it passed. Yuwuji's blue dress fluttered, but she did not use her divine weapon. Instead, many white grains of sand gathered around her. The white sand was like a stream of water, extremely agile. They could transform into swords, halberds, and even giant axes. Moreover, the white sand was not only an attack, but also a perfect defense. Whether it was Sumo, Yi Kanshing, or Yuwuji, they were all protected by the white sand. The evil dragons wanted to hurt them, but they could not break the white sand's protection. Endless cloud desert, invincible white sand. Sumo said in her heart. She had heard of Yuwuji's spells in the three realms, but today was the first time she saw it. Endless cloud desert and white sand lived up to their reputation. At this time, Yi Kanshing and Yuwuji fulfilled their promise. The descendants of the three realms were all comrades. They did not have the slightest intention of abandoning Sumo. They tightly protected Sumo in the middle and fought the evil dragons with all their strength. The two of them were brave and invincible, but the evil dragons seemed to increase the more they killed. More than 10 evil dragons were slain by them into the abyss, but the surrounding evil dragons did not decrease at all. Instead, their roars shook the heaven and earth. The dense fog was like a rolling wave. This place seemed to have become the center of the entire trapped dragon abyss. Sumo slightly spread out her divine sense. She could sense that there were many evil dragons rushing over. At this time, Yi Sansheng's body was already covered in blood. Yuwuji had the absolute protection of the white sand, and her blue dress was still the same. However, the white sand was turning red bit by bit. Their power was rapidly being consumed. "Miss you, take Brother Su and leave first. I'll bring up the rear for you," Yi Kanshing shouted after killing a dragon. At the same time, he waved one hand. The flying wheel Dharma treasure shot out of the room. "Follow it." Yi Kanshing wanted to break a bloody path for Sumo and Yuwuji. At that moment, Sumo's heart warmed, and she raised her eyebrows at the same time. The descendants of the three realms were all comrades. Sumo was ready to attack. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.